Here.
Mr. Gatewood.
Present.
Ms. Johnson.
Present.
Dr. Murillo.
Present.
Mr. Ploger.
Present.
Ms. Simonton.
Present.
Ms. Venmouth.
Present.
Our student board members, Hope Rie and Callie Purnell.
Here.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Board, tonight we are so proud of our Pride Award winners showcased here this evening and all of our dedicated teachers and staff. And I want to now invite for board recognition. We're going to begin with John Francis.
All right, thank you, Dr. Kilgotti. Tonight, the Board of Education acknowledges the Pride winners from Lakewood Creek, Fox Chase Hunt Club, and Wolf's Crossing Elementary Schools for the month of November. Pride stands for proudly recognizing individuals demonstrating excellence. The Board of Education began this program 9 years ago to recognize, promote, and celebrate the many contributions made by teachers and employees across our district. We thank our generous district partners, Chick-fil-A, Culver's, Imagination Print and Design, Huntington Learning Center, ServBank, and The Scoop. We would also like to thank all those who nominated individuals for consideration. Awardees, after your name is called and we share your nomination, please come forward to be congratulated by the board and Dr. Kilgotti. And then wait until the rest of the individuals from your school have been called up. First off, we have Lakewood Creek Elementary School. Welcome, Heather Fisher, 5th grade teacher. Heather Fisher. Heather cares for her students beyond academics, ultimately fostering what someone called a fun learning community that incorporates everyone's talents. Her students and fellow teachers alike admire her positivity and passion. As the nominator shared, she clearly defines students' academic goals and lets them know that is preparing them for junior high and beyond. Former students frequently remark, "I learned that in Mrs. Fisher's class." Congratulations, Heather. Next up, Jennifer Maloney, 1st grade teacher. Jennifer's work to create a classroom that welcomes students of all backgrounds and abilities makes her truly deserving of the Pride Award, as shared by her nominator. She understands her students' unique needs and strives to provide an engaging learning experience for all of them. One parent said, "Mrs. Maloney advocates tirelessly for the best interests of her students, takes immense pride in her work, and displays personal and professional integrity." Congratulations, Jen. And finally, from Lakewood Creek, we have Nikki Comperda, teacher assistant. Nikki is an eager helper, always willing to serve her students and fellow staff members in her valued role as a teacher assistant. She cares deeply about the well-being of each student, and as her nominator shared, Nikki goes out of her way every day to make sure that every student at Lakewood Creek feels special. Lakewood Creek would not be the same without her. Congratulations, Nikki. Let's give one more round of applause to our Pride winners from Lakewood Creek Elementary School. At this time, we invite any building administrators and district admin who are present to come forward and join the awardees, the board, and Dr. Kilgotti. All right, our next spotlight is Fox Chase Elementary School. First of all, we have Jim Nichols, 5th grade teacher. Little known fact, Jim has worked in this district for over 30 years, and in that time, he has left a profound impact on the lives of students, families, and staff members. He is kind, compassionate, and leads by example, always sharing valuable life lessons that positively shape his students' academic experiences. As shared by a nominator, each year he teaches the whole child. He makes sure that he not only teaches their minds, but that he teaches their hearts. Congratulations. Next up, we have 3rd grade teacher Jamie Wayne. Jamie has taught at Fox Chase since its opening in 2001. Through the years, she has worked to promote kindness and friendship among her students and has dedicated personal time to serve on a number of committees at Fox Chase. Jamie's teaching style acknowledges the district's diverse community. Her nominator shared that her disposition and respectful communication with all students affirms the dedication to make Oswego Community Unit School District 308 one of the best places to educate children and raise a family. Congratulations, Jamie. And finally, we have Eugenia DaCosta, teacher's assistant. Eugenia approaches her role with compassion, making her a vital part of the Fox Chase Elementary School's special education department. As highlighted by her nominator, she perfectly balances supporting students while pushing them to be the best that they can be. Congratulations, Eugenia. At this time, we will invite up some building admin for some pictures.
The principal and assistant principal.
Next up, we have Hunt Club Elementary School. First of all, Melissa DeVito, social worker. Melissa is always smiling while working to provide resources to the Hunt Club community. She is a great supporter of students and staff alike. Melissa leads the community outreach team, thus ensuring she can help families in need. A nominator shared, Melissa gives everything she has to her students. She looks for ways to support and help her students find success daily. Congratulations, Melissa. Next up, Heather Mayer, 1st grade teacher. Heather goes above and beyond to communicate with the parents of her students, allowing them to see all the hands-on activities she incorporates in her classroom to promote a love for learning. As one parent shared, we feel so lucky to have her as our son's 1st grade teacher this year, and it's only October. Congratulations, Heather. And lastly, from Hunt Club, Stephanie Zickman, secretary. Stephanie can always be seen as a friendly face at Hunt Club, always smiling and willing to help. As a secretary, she greets students, staff, and parents while also working behind the scenes to ensure everything runs smoothly during the school day. As one nominator stated, she is extremely organized and has an incredibly hard work ethic. She is thorough, a problem solver, and goes out of her way to support everyone. Congratulations, Stephanie. And at this time, if we can have the building administrator come on up for some pictures. Our final building we are recognizing tonight is Wolf's Crossing Elementary School. First of all, we have Stephanie Comis, first grade teacher. Stephanie is positive in the midst of challenges, always handling everything with grace. She works hard to make sure her students know they are loved and cared for. As the nominator shared, she is truly a role model for any educator. Congratulations, Stephanie. Our next staff member is Nita Mehta, teacher assistant. Neethi Mehta. Neethi cares for her students and fellow staff members, consistently checking in with her colleagues to see how she can support them. Her nominator said, she brings out the best in our students and is always willing to lend a helping hand. Congratulations. And the final teacher from Wolf's Crossing was not able to make it tonight due to some family emergencies, but we want to recognize Erin Jenkins, kindergarten teacher. Erin is a one-of-a-kind teacher, making her an excellent candidate to receive a Pride Award, her nominator shared. She cares about each of her students and strives to meet their unique needs. As a team member said, Erin frequently has former students reaching out to her to let her know the impact she has made on their educational and personal journey. Her current students light up each morning as they are greeted by Mrs. Jenkins. Congratulations, Erin. And if we have administration coming up for a picture. All right, one final round of applause as we recognize and celebrate these members. Honorees, please proceed out into the hallway, gathering at the landing of the stairs for one large group photo. Thank you to all the families and colleagues who are here tonight to support our winners.
Good work.
That was my son's favorite. Feel heard and seen, so. Yeah.
I did not do that. I'm gonna rewatch the video.
I didn't look it over. Okay. All right, board. We will continue with our agenda this evening, and before we go further, we're going to take a minute to recognize our board members. You know that Friday was Board Member Appreciation Day, and we are so grateful for the work done by our community. Let's give the board a big round of applause. I'd like to invite you to the front for a picture. I'm just kidding.
We just did that.
Okay. But in all sincerity, really, we are so grateful for your service, your leadership, and your courage as you serve on this board. And we really think about the work that's been done over the last tenure that I've been here. Really, my own from a personal level, your questions, your push, your guidance, your leadership, and I am so honored to be able to partner with you and to serve under this board. Your contributions enable us to strengthen our school community, our leadership, think about our resources that we allocate, and evaluate our opportunities for growth. We as a community, on behalf of our staff and students, we could not be more proud of the work that you lead us in and the work we've done together in service to our community and our students. On behalf, again, of our staff and students, we want to thank you, Board President Latanya Simulton, Board Vice President Eugene Gatewood, Board Secretary Jared Ploger, Board Members Dominic Cerrone, Board Member Jennifer Johnson, Board Member Dr. Amy Murillo, and Board Member Mary Jo Wenmoth. We also want to thank our student board members, Hope Rie and Kali Parnell, and our alternatives who are there to support. Your work really makes a difference, and we are so proud to serve under the board's leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Notice all our friends showed up today.
Yes.
All right, we'll move to 5.1, public comment. So on behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank you for attending tonight's meeting. We value the feedback we receive from our members of the public and encourage everyone to take an active interest in their public school system. Members of the public interested in speaking to the Board of Education this evening are asked to have completed a comment card and presented it to the secretary to the board. When the secretary calls your name, I ask that you come to the microphone and state your name for the public record and provide your feedback. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per person and that no discussion of personnel matters, stating staff names, or responses to your questions are permitted. The board does not participate in discussion during public comment. Follow-up to your questions or concerns will be addressed by administration through the contact information provided on the comment card. Thank you.
Lauren Shoemaker.
Green, green,
Green one.
green. You're on.
Hello, my name is Lauren Shoemaker, and I have a daughter at Thompson and twin sons at Old Post. I'm here to make a statement regarding student use of smartphones during school hours in our district. Our current policy states that in grades K through 8, cell phones are not to be used by students during school hours unless authorized by a teacher or administrator, which on paper sounds appropriate. However, with my oldest recently entering middle school, I have learned that a cell phone can be carried around by students and used during free time in class, passing periods, and phones have even been offered as a student reward. For high school, there is no current policy in effect in regards to cell phone usage. I am here today to advocate for a policy that strictly enforces phone-free schools for all of District 308. I have brought a gift for each of the board members today. I don't know if any of you are familiar. It is called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. This book discusses the harmful effects of smartphones for students who have one, but also for students who don't. Let's start with students who have smartphones. Students who engage with smartphones regularly suffer from many harmful effects, including sleep deprivation, social deprivation, attention fragmentation, and addiction. I understand the board cannot control the sleep habits of students, but we can decrease the 3 other harms associated with smartphone usage. Let's start with social deprivation. The author reports that the time students spend with friends having face-to-face interactions has dramatically decreased since 2009. He goes on to state that even when adolescents are within a few feet of their friends, their smartphone damages the quality of their time together. Smartphones grab our attention so powerfully that if they merely vibrate in our pockets for 1/10 of a second, many of us will interrupt a face-to-face conversation just in case the phone is bringing us an important update. When students are allowed to have continuous access to their phones, the time they have to develop interpersonal skills with their peers, such as building relationships, problem solving, conflict resolution, active listening, collaboration, and teamwork, is impeded. Another harmful effect of smartphones is attention fragmentation. In this book, the author refers to a study that was conducted with college students. In this study, students went to a lab and were assigned to either leave their phone out in the entry room of the lab, keep their phone with them in a bag or in their pocket, or put their phone on their desk next to them. The students were then asked to complete tasks that tested their fluid intelligence and working memory. I'm sure it is no surprise that the students who performed best were the ones who left their phones in another room. The worst performers were the group of students whose phones were left on their desks. Lastly, smartphones create device addiction. Throughout the book, the author gives multiple examples of ways in which apps have been developed with the intention of creating a device addiction. However, the most alarming information that I came across while reading this book is that many app companies and social media platforms hired scientists to study the brain of adolescents. The goal was to target parts of their underdeveloped brains to get them addicted to smartphone apps and social media platforms. In other words, these companies are intentionally using a child's underdeveloped brain against them to get them addicted to their products. As a result of these harms, we have seen a dramatic increase in anxiety, depression, loneliness, and isolation among teens. But not just for students with smartphones. These mental health conditions have also increased in students without smartphones. Phones are an experience blocker. They block experience opportunities for students with and without phones. The students without phones also engage in less face-to-face peer interactions, which again impedes the development of all those essential interpersonal skills. Like with smartphone users, social deprivation for students without phones has also led to an increase in anxiety, depression, isolation, and loneliness. So what can we do to get our students' childhoods back that include more play, more face-to-face interactions, more connection among peers, and less mental health conditions? Jonathan Haidt offers 4 ways in which we can give our children a healthier childhood. They are no smartphones until high school, no social media before 16, more independence, play, and responsibility in the real world, and phone-free schools for all. I can do the first 3 mentioned on my own. However, I need your help with the last important piece. I am asking the school board to please take immediate action in implementing a phone-free school policy in our district. I also urge the district to enforce zero tolerance with phone usage during school hours that is followed up with real consequences. I know that with phone-free schools, we can decrease the harmful effects of smartphones that have led to the epidemic of mental health illnesses in children that we see all too frequently today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was waiting for my gift, sorry. Okay. Good evening, board. We're going to continue with 6.1. We have an update regarding the 2024 Illinois School Report Card. I want to invite Dr. Kincaid to speak to that, and then I'll have a few comments on the end. Thank you, Dr. Kincaid.
So before Dr. Kincaid begins to speak, I'd like to have a motion to move agenda item 6.2 as the first presentation. Can I have a motion to move agenda item 6.2 to 6.1?
Make a motion to move agenda item 6.2 to 6.1.
Second.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Ms. Van Myth?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Oh, this is the other presentations.
Thank you. This evening, what I would like to do is provide a summary of our summative report card, so including our summative designations and our school report card. We did a lengthy presentation at the Equity, Learning, and Innovation Board Committee report, meeting, and during that report, we will also get some additional information. The focus of our presentation tonight is really connected to the school report card data linked to our summative designation. So all data presented tonight, including both our overall and our subgroup data, is publicly available on our district website. So as our schools are digging into their individual data, what we will be looking at this evening is our overall district data. So our summative designations, every school at the end of the school year is awarded a designation. There are 4 different possible designations that our schools can receive. Elementary and junior high are categorized as 75% academic indicators, with a majority, 50% of their score, coming from ELA or math growth as measured by the IAR, and then 7.5 for both ELA or math proficiency based on the state standard. Their 25% of the student success indicator is based on chronic absenteeism and our climate survey, which our district utilizes the 5 essentials. The high school is also 75% academic indicators and 25% student success, but a majority of the high school determination is based on graduation rates, with 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year impacting their overall score, with 4-year counting as 60% of their summative designation as part of that 50%, 30% for 5-year, and 10% for 6-year. ELA and math proficiency in school year 24 is measured for our 11th graders on the SAT, with their proficiency at 7.5. And then the additional for our student success indicator is our 9th grade on track. So in terms of the schools, we had one school, Wolf's Crossing, that received a summative designation of exemplary. We had, this is the second year in a row that Wolf's Crossing has received exemplary summative designation. All 5 of our junior highs, both of our high schools, were commendable, as were Boulder Hill, Churchill, Grand Park, Homestead, Hunt Club, Lakewood Creek, Prairie Point, Southbury, and the Wheatlands. We also would like to celebrate Boulder Hill because in school year 23, they received a targeted summative designation, and in 24, they received a commendable designation. Fox Chase, Old Post, and Long Beach all are received a targeted designation, and in order to be classified as targeted, their overall performance was not in the top 10%, but did not fall in the bottom 5%, but one of their subgroups did fall into that bottom 5%. So for this coming year, both Fox Chase and Old Post will enter a planning year. So similar to Boulder Hill and Long Beach last year, they will have the opportunity to really work with their staff throughout the school year to develop a supplemental school improvement plan to really help support our children with disabilities. So both Fox Chase and Old Post, the subgroup that qualified them as a targeted summative designation, was children with disabilities, which includes both 504 and IEP. Boulder Hill and Long Beach do continue into their year 1 implementation. We did present and was approved for their supplemental school improvement plan this last summer, so they have already implemented additional supports for children with disabilities this year. So in terms of overall our school improvement data, we did see a slight decrease in our enrollment from 16,797 to 16,696 from school year 23 to 24. We had slight changes to our demographic subgroups. In terms of some celebrations, we did see growth in our IAR for ELA in terms of overall, so these are students in grades 3 through 8, going from 41.3% meets and exceeds to 45% meets and exceeds, in which we were also above the state average overall for our district as measured by IAR and ELA. We also, if you take a look at the data, we did see increases from school year 23 to 24 in IAR for ELA in all of our subgroups. For math for IAR, we did see a slight increase from 31.5 to 32.2%. We were also above the state average. We did see some increases, but we also did see a slight decrease in one of our subgroups. So overall, as I mentioned, we did see an increase from 41.3 meets and exceeds. So these are our students that scored a 4 or a 5 on the IAR, from 2023 to 45% in 2024. And overall, we did see growth in both our meets and our exceeds. For IAR math, we did see a slight increase in meets and exceeds overall from 31.5 to 32.2. For SAT for ELA, we did see a slight decrease in our students. We also saw some decreases between some of our subgroups and then an increase in one of our subgroups. We were above the state average for ELA overall for our high schools. Our math also saw a decrease from 30.2 to 25.4. And we did see, again, some increase, some decrease in our subgroup. So overall, this data has been shared and discussed with the high schools. Dr. Paul and Dr. Dubiel with their teams are also working with our high schools in relation to this data. Some additional data that we wanted to share with you related to our summative designation is our growth data. From 23 to 24, we did see a slight decrease in our overall growth in both ELA and math, but we did see less decrease in our growth data in math as compared to ELA. So what we also saw, though, increase was our ISA and our EL exit rate. So we did increase from 7.7 as our exit rate to 8.3, and we were above the state average for our exit rate for our students in our EL population as measured by the access test. So just some, again, some summaries. We saw an overall increase in IAR proficiency in both ELA and math, but we did see a decrease in student growth. Student growth is measured, in this case, from 23 to 24 in comparison to like peers. Our EL learner student exit percentage did increase from 7.7 to 8.3. So in terms of our high schools, we did see an increase in our graduation rate. Our four-year graduation rate in 2023 was 94%, and that did rise to 95.5. And we were above the state average in terms of our graduation rate for overall and for all of our subgroups. In terms of our 9th grade on track, which is part of our summative designation, in order to be considered on track, you need to have 5 credits by the end of second semester and not have failed more than 1 semester of a core class. So English, math, social studies, or science. So we did see an increase from 92.1 to 92.5 from 23 to 24. And we were very close in one subgroup, but above the state average in every other subgroup. In terms of our last data point related to our summative designation is our chronic absentee. We did see a decrease, which is what we want, in our chronic absentee rate. Our chronic absentee rate was 22.9 in 2023, and then in 2024 was 20.9. And we, in terms of, in comparison to the state average, we did have some groups below the state average, which is what we want, and some groups above the state average. So these are the state data points that our buildings and our district do look at in relationship to our summative designations.
Any questions, board? There's a lot to digest there. One of the things that Dr. Kincaid, as you heard at the public forum, has been leading is our strategic planning process. And so this data is will be a part of how we think about what we've learned through the curriculum audit, what we've learned through really the partnership we're building with our union leaders, and our various committees that are really brought about by the union and the district to really think about how we organize ourselves to really ensure that our foundation is strong. And in a few minutes, you're going to hear a follow-up presentation from our learning innovation team, our equity engagement, and diverse learner team about how we are going to be thinking about these scores as well.
I just had a couple comments because I'm in the Equity Teaching and Learning Committee, so we had an opportunity to also view this in that committee as well. And just a couple, I guess, public comments. The public kind of digests some of this information. My takeaways are like there's room for growth and there's also some celebrations, right? And I know that there's some work already going on and then there's more work to come. I also want to iterate that these are not the only data points that we use to determine if our students are achieving. Especially this, standardized tests, they're a moment in time, they take them one day at school, that's their score, and that's not always, it's a snapshot in time. It's not necessarily the full picture of their achievement, but it's good to add to the mix. And then the last thing I'll say is that sometimes in the public, you'll hear people say, well, our scores are at this rate, and let's say Florida, 80% of students are, achieving at whatever rate. So just to reiterate, every state is different. So in Florida and Ohio and California, we're all using completely different tests to provide us information about the achievement of our students. So it's really not a great comparison. I think what is a great comparison that we include in here is the state average so that we can see how we're doing in comparison with others in our surrounding areas in our state who are taking the same exam. So just some points of clarification there as this becomes, publicly digested.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, board.
I'm sorry.
Oh, please.
I was caught in my thought for a
Oh,
second.
I apologize.
Kind of in parallel to this, but not regarding necessarily the state report card, but in the future, can we please look at what is going on with our K through 8 new ELA curriculum and what the trends we're seeing there? I already know this is being looked at with Mrs. Mann, with the different junior highs. I want to bring up two things that have come out of both the forum, but also as I've talked to parents throughout the district, because I wasn't sure if this was just something that a specific junior high was going through. But I've now heard from parents at every junior high that we're seeing some assessment trends with our new curriculum. Two things. One of the things that came out of the forum was, and I actually have an email from an ELA teacher that said that we shouldn't focus on grades. I think we need to be incredibly careful when we talk about that and when we say that to both parents and students, because it does have a direct correlation to whether students can play sports if they are not achieving, academically. But secondly, it also, recently the students underwent an ELA assessment and a good portion of them did not do well. It happens to be 55% of their grade, but don't worry because grades don't matter. So I think there's a lot of communication, messaging that needs to be adjusted there. And one of my favorite books that I talk about all the time is called Street Data. And when we are looking at grading for equity, and it specifically says, allowing redos and retakes, any student should be able to retake a major assessment for a full new grade as long as they are coming to school and putting in effort. This tacks to the culture of revision and redemption that discusses in the book earlier. So I just want to make sure that there's more of a district review of how we're communicating to parents and students and grades that matter or don't matter, and then juxtapose that to you're taking an assessment, it's worth a significant portion of your grade, you don't get to retake it, and the response to that being, the specific response being, we are increasing our rigor and standards alignment. okay, that's true, but when a new curriculum is introduced, the students that receive that new curriculum for the first year shouldn't pay the price of lack of professional development, lack of understanding of teaching of that new curriculum and so forth. So for the future, if the board could see just how we're doing with that, which I was very excited about, that new curriculum, and what the trends we're seeing with assessment data, and our assessment data, and so forth. I think it would be very helpful for us to understand and identify where maybe we need to make some adjustments. So.
It's really helpful feedback, and I think you hit on a really important point that actually we've been visiting schools, the board members and educators in our district team, and one of the trends has been how can we, when we think about our strategic planning process, think about renewal cycles for our curriculum to have a much longer runway in terms of providing teachers the right amount of time to really get the deep professional learning instead of, processes which are unfortunately very typical, where we adopt the new curriculum and then we go into implementation within 2 to 3 months, right? And so that is something that definitely we've heard quite a bit, and I appreciate you raising that tonight. I think also the questions you raised about street data, and we think about how we should be reflecting on formative assessments, really, how our students are doing along the way, and summative assessments, and then what's the coordination, the connection that has to the curriculum itself, and are we measuring the right things in that pathway? So really good points, and actually it's a great segue into our next presentation.
Thank you.
No, you nailed it. I was just moved to respond and speak to it, so thank you. I want to invite now, if we may, please, if there are other questions, we can move this into the next part, which is it's somewhat complementary to what you just said. So in 6.2, which is really thinking about our foundational practices. And this evening, I want to invite Dr. Waller, Dr. Dubiel, and Dr. Paul to speak to it. In our strategic roadmap board, we identified the need for what we call our foundational practices, because what we learned last year, as we thought about the work that needed to get done for this year, we needed to identify some key priorities, which we're really thinking about effective systems, high quality instruction, and then really this idea of a culture of welcome and inclusivity and presence, which we call rightful presence, which is connected to our board policy. And so I want to invite the three of you to please share some reflections that was first brought to the Equity Teaching Learning Committee. So thank you. The floor is yours. Thank you to our tech team for preparing us and getting us there.
Good evening, board.
Mic check.
Check. Okay. Good
There you go.
evening,
You're
board.
good.
On behalf of the iLead group, as a reminder, iLead, there it's at the bottom, stands for Innovation, Learner, Equity, Advocacy, and Diversity. The iLead group represents Dr. Paul, Dr. Waller, and myself. Tonight we're going to reiterate the criticalness of the foundational practices and how we integrate it to lift the academic learning environment. Two main ideas that we will be discussing in tonight's presentation is defining cultural and relational responsiveness and using what is the ISO framework to examine the 5 essential surveys. Before we dive in, a critical reminder as well to why we're here, our foundational practices and how it drives our work. Everything that we do is grounded on the shared vision of effective systems and teams, high quality instruction, equity, and rightful presence. I cannot overstate how often this has become part of who we are as a system. As I turn it over to Dr. Paul, and she will provide incredible insight on the ISO framework, I'm just going to provide kind of that overview. When it comes to supporting students, and perhaps when students struggle, historically and in many different institutions, sometimes it is a deficit view when the students are not thriving. So we want to look beyond that deficit view and really examine our own instruction. How are we differentiating to support the learning for our students? Look at our curriculum and how it is rigorous and it is aligned to what we want the students to learn. Check out our environment to ensure that we have an environment that is inclusive, where students feel valued and valid in the space. And then look at the learner. If all of the I, C, and E is not met through the ISO framework. Thank you.
you, Dr. Dubiel. As we continue to unpack the ISO framework in our system, we know it's situated in our MTSS Academic and Social Emotional Learning Equity Handbook. We are providing professional development for our leaders and our teams this year and understanding how to use this framework when they're analyzing data. As Dr. Dubiel indicated, we want to really situate our system to look at Tier 1 instruction, how we're differentiating our curriculum, our instruction, paying attention to the environment of the learner, and ultimately, this is in response to what our curriculum audit tells us. We need to have a better systemized way and common language and vocabulary when we're talking about student achievement data. To help us unpack the ISO framework, we're using the 5 essentials data that is available to our schools from the previous school year. You can see in this graphic here, there are different elements we're going to touch on today. The first one we're going to highlight is ambitious instruction, how this relates to the ISO framework. This data here that you see before you gives you an overview of where we're at and the respondents that responded to these questions. In particular, one area, quality of student discussion, for one of our schools, for example, is an area they're addressing in their school improvement plan with high quality instruction. The team at that high school is unpacking that data and identifying Tier 1 instructional differentiated practices that they can lift forward in their action plan to make that come alive in addressing this area. In addition, on this slide, you can see some questions at the top of the graphic that are from our Learning and Innovation team as well as Equity Engagement team as we are lifting forward for our leaders questions they can ask their teams when they're engaging in data such as ambitious instruction. The trend line data here you can see where we show growth and then where we go slightly down. Paying attention to this data, we're asking questions such as, are evidence-based instructional strategies and materials used that take into account specific student concerns utilized? Questions like this, again, reflect what the audit indicates in encouraging us as a system to run after evidence-based instructional strategies as we support our learners. The next area of the 5 essentials is curriculum. In this area, we're making a connection to what the 5 essentials data tells us about collaborative teachers. You can see very similar to ambitious instruction, the different measures we were looking at, and then the respondents who provided feedback. You can see areas where we are neutral and areas where we have areas for growth. One thing that we are encouraging our system to do, again, is to be really reflective of the curriculum that we have in front of our students. We want to be reflective and analyze, is the curriculum unbiased and representative of the diverse ways students demonstrate knowledge? Again, this is reflective of what the curriculum audit guides us to do in having curriculum maps and scope and sequence for every course taught in our system. And that is something we are unpacking within the iLead department, along with other departments this year, to be making recommendations, not only for our curriculum renewal cycle in the future, as well as the work we're going to be doing together with our strategic plan. The next area to highlight is supportive environment, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Waller.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. So when we consider the environment portion of ISO, we wanted to make sure that we went back into the curriculum audit. Consider some of those recommendations. So within that curriculum audit, we noticed that we need to direct our attention to lessening the disparities that we are seeing between our different student groups and truly focusing on giving them a voice and an opportunity and space so that they...
Dr. Waller, I'm so sorry. Do you mind grab the microphone from right there? I just don't want, what you're saying is important. I don't want it to get lost.
Hello, hello.
There we go.
This one is hot.
Guaranteed.
All right. So within the curriculum audit, it really highlighted how important it was for us to eliminate the disparities that we're seeing between our different student groups. And so we understand how impactful that is to our students' learning experience if the environment is not what we need it to be. And so when we make the connection to the 5 essentials presentation there, we notice here when we're looking at student teacher, there's neutral areas. Academic personalism as well as safety is also neutral. And then peer support is strong. And so how can we leverage and elevate that in our classroom spaces? Much of time spent this year, as well as at the end of last year, has been this focus on student-teacher relationships. And so while neutral may not indicate weak, it is still an area of opportunity for us. And so when you look at the trend data here, the performance across all the surveys from 2021 into this space, you see that it is trending down. And so we want to make sure that we focus on bringing to the space culturally and relational responsive spaces. And so in highlighting that, Rightful Presence Pathway number 3 is cultural and relational responsiveness. We recognize that there's a difference between those two areas, cultural being making sure that we're understanding students' lived experiences and embedding that and considering how those factors influence their learning experience, whether it's students with disabilities, whether it's language, whether it's family background, et cetera. And then when we lean into the relational aspect, this is something I know that our student ambassadors or board members have also been focusing on through SSAC, but really wanting to highlight the importance of being physically and psychologically safe in the classroom and how important it is for them to have that so that they can take risks, so that they can begin to have the relationships of trust and respect and then attain the knowledge that they're learning in those classes. And so we wanted to make sure tonight that we brought forward some of the work that we have been doing across iLead as well as within other departments. And so when we look at cultural responsiveness, we have our English novel renewal that L&I has been focused on, although they have recruited. And so we have all been collectively reading books. So that's been, it's been a nice collaborative space. Our SEL curriculum with Character Strong students, we've gotten a lot of great responses to how they are engaging in those spaces. We are under the development of our SD308 curriculum maps. Again, all L&I. If you have more questions, we have Dr. Paul here. HMH and Benchmark ELA and Cultivating Genius has been underway for quite some time, but the Equity and Engagement Department has been able to go through with the collaboration of other educators and include equity resources and information and support for teachers, as well as highlighting some Cultivating Genius aspects. And then additionally, we have worked towards increasing our diverse and multicultural student groups. On the relational responsiveness side, we have our Superintendent Student Advisory Committee who has been lifting both of the high school improvement plans, which is their goal is one trusted adult. And so I know that you'll learn a lot more from them regarding that. We have been developing ways to communicate with our families and with our students based on background and culture, just really trying to make sure we meet everyone where they are. And then we've been uncovering and leveraging axiology. That is about how different groups value relationships, which I know our board members will speak about soon. We have been lifting our superintendent advisory group, as well as our parent university and our caregiver cafes. And so with that, how does this connect with our ISO framework for environment? These questions, like Dr. Paul had shared, they come from a document that really helps us to slow down. This is the intent with ISO, is to slow down so that we are not blaming the learner, so that we are considering the work that we are doing in order to lift and elevate that learner. And so 2 questions of several that we have are, do the student and teacher have a connection that supports their success, working together to learn? And are all aspects of physical and psychological safety considered in the learning environment? And so in having those conversations, we open the door to learn more about our students and where they're coming from so that we can meet them where they are.
As we round out this analysis of the 5 essentials data and the ISO framework, we have now gone to our learner. And you can see the learner touches all parts of the 5 essentials survey. And the data that we have here, again, you can see the respondents are teachers and where we are neutral in an area for growth. As we think about our system and how we can help support our learners, essentially, as Dr. Waller was indicating with environment, is how do students demonstrate positive connections with other students and adults? Again, focusing on relationships and how important that is for community and in the classroom. And when we know students have a sense of psychological and physical safety, they are all able to feel more successful in an environmental space where they feel they're supported. One thing to note that when we administered our fall panorama survey, we actually used the 5 essentials data to create in grades 6 through 12 additional short answer questions because we were left asking more questions. As a team, learning innovation, equity and engagement, student services, and diverse learners, along with students from 612 Coalition, we created questions we asked our students to respond to give us additional data sets around belonging and psychological safety. This data, along with other data that we've received from the Panorama survey that our buildings have just gotten training on, is very useful for us as we analyze our student achievement data as we run after looking at developing and lifting up the whole child here in 308.
So at this time, we just want to emphasize again the learner and where ISO stands as far as the framework and supporting the holistic child, and then see if there are any questions.
Thank you very much. I want to invite now, board, if you have any questions about this presentation. I know you have a copy of the packet, so this evening, welcome questions you may have.
Not a question, but just a statement. I'm so excited because, you know,
Can you talk in the mic?
in the past, our systems, the ones that existed, were kind of like siloed, and now we have like frameworks that are aligned with everything that's needed in order for our students to be successful. So I'm just so excited, and thank you for the work of everyone to make this happen for our students. I'm excited to see the results of it, right? Thank you.
I just had a statement as well. I think it's really important what you guys are doing because not only is it about the student success, but it's also about the teacher success with the student and creating that relationship. So I think it's very important about how you guys are going about this and involving SSAC and involving yourselves into it as well and getting these other opinions from teachers and students to build that relationship because it's also vice versa. It's about our student success, but it's also about the teacher success with the student as well because every teacher wants a successful student and every student wants a teacher that knows what they're doing and enjoys their environment that they're in. So I just want to say thank you to you guys as well.
Well said.
Mic drop.
Can you
I just
talk?
have-
Oh,
I
after
just
you,
have a
Jen.
couple of, oh, go ahead.
After you.
I just have a couple of questions. With regard to evidence-based instruction, what are the specific criteria that we're using kind of when assessing whether it be strategies or curriculum or whatever? What is the criteria, especially for students that are at or below grade level?
I can start off, and then I can hand it over to Dr. Miguel. Two areas that we have talked about a lot last year leading into this year is using two websites called What Works Clearinghouse and Evidence for ESSA. Last year, in leading the 4 MTSS committees, I introduced these websites to our system and encouraged our staff to look at the current interventions we're providing our students in academic and SEL to see what is the evidence behind it, and then to dig actually deeper and to look at what the demographic data tells us about the studies. Does that match the demographic data of our students? And if it doesn't, this is not the most appropriate intervention that we're using, and we need to go back to the drawing board. We had a lot of aha moments, a lot of like, oh no, what do we do? And I encourage them that once we know more, we do more. And there's an opportunity as a system to provide some additional piloting of academic and SEL interventions moving forward, because what we recognized is that we have some areas where we need to be tighter, to have some equity across our district. As you mentioned, teachers. Teachers need to have consistent professional development around interventions, as well as our students need to have a similar experience. If they were to go from school to school within the same school year, they should have similar opportunities to be provided support within our district.
So one of the areas I've learned about is quite a number of curricular resources that we may be using in diverse learners either not truly with fidelity or hasn't gone through some type of clearinghouse to ensure that it is evidence-based. So learning, innovation, and diverse learners have come together several times to comb through all of these resources. There were quite a bit. And now we're going through and we're prioritizing which ones we know that we feel should be a priority, and then make sure that they are in fact evidence-based, as historically it may have been purchased without really thinking about
Thus
the
the
value
question.
and the quality of the resource.
Yeah.
And we're just another uncovering that
Yes.
we've encountered.
I really appreciate that, and I also just want to give you kudos for, I've in the past have been a little hard on past administration around MTSS because I didn't think we were really utilizing MTSS, so I want to give you, definite kudos for that. You answered like kind of my next question, but with that, can you tell me, Dr. Dubiel, for our non-speaking Spanish families, how are we connecting with them? It's been a goal of ours for a long time. I know that it continues to be, there continue to be challenges, but where are we with kind of getting through those challenges, and what are we doing to help those families?
So I'm guessing we're referencing BPAC. BPAC has been amazing. We've had several meetings with them, and they were very honest with their frustrations with the dual language program, particularly at the junior high level. And so we're working to build their trust, and we're working to understand some of the challenges that has come with the lack of quality curriculum. So we are actually examining some of those pieces externally. We've worked closely with L&I and also recognize that we may need something unique with them. So just today, actually, in our meeting, we are considering partnering with someone to help those dual language teachers at the junior high level to build that. In working with the parents, we have had multiple meetings. They feel very strong and very supportive of the dual language at the elementary level. They were concerned about it at the at the middle school level and our junior high level. And at no fault of that team, it's just what they have inherited and not been provided a scope and sequence and quality curriculum map. So that's where we are at, and working with those teachers to build their capacity. So we may be relying on some external expertise, but we're going to get it done.
And I know we did a contract with a company, and it's totally going over my head right now.
Yes, we did last year, and that, unfortunately, that consulting contract did not deliver what they had promised. So we're going a different direction.
Disappointing. Thank you very much for that, and I'm sorry, I just have one more question.
Sure.
With regard to our superintendent advisory group, our parent university, our caregiver cafe, how are we, maybe Dr. Kelgati, this is for you or anybody, how do we assess the success of those programs? I personally just want to share that I think that those have really started to break through and build trust with parent communities and with taxpayers that may want to have input, especially in the superintendent advisory group. But how do we make sure we're getting and using those resources to the best of our ability?
It's a great question. So, two things. The first thing, I think that you've talked about street data quite a bit. So I think we think about exit lists. We think about at the end of the meetings, we sit with those who are participating. What did you know? What was your experience? What advice do you have? Secondly, ultimately, parent university really, we're thinking about as across the district, but really needs to be situated in a school-based community. And so where the direction, and I'm going to invite Dr. Wall to speak to it a little bit, where we are looking to strengthen the involvement is to really lean into our respective school communities. So right now we're centering in, we're building up Boulder Hill and Plank communities, but it's not exclusive, but it's definitely centered in those. And so as we think about, I guess you could say, spawning various experiences, I know that some communities or districts do kind of like a huge parent university for the whole district, which is where we're at right now. Developmentally, I really believe we have to move to smaller based places. Do you want to add to it, Dr. Wall? And then I'll close out with another comment.
No, it is we've talked about the school-based piece, and actually in our team meeting today, we were talking about making these stronger connections even with our HSOs and PTAs and
Yes.
how we filter through our communication in those spaces. Because the thing is about Parent University is that it really needs to be parent-led. And so we've had, you know, an opportunity to have two, and each time we collect more parents along the way. But to Dr. Kelgadi's point, you know, we need to be consistent, but we also need to figure out ways to bring more people into the space. And so we intend to do that by lifting kids, right? Because we know if the kids are there, then we can get the parents to show up. So, and if we can get them in the space, then there's so many opportunities for them to attain all of these different resources. And it's just getting them in those spaces.
And I think, to your point, Dr. Kelgadi, I don't know, this just hit me, but it was an aha moment. A lot of times, a Boulder Hill community functions very differently than a Wolf's Crossing community.
Absolutely.
So having it be school-based
Absolutely.
feels like you may get more people to want to join versus, but if we don't, you can't just, you have to build it, right? So building it from a district level, but I really like that idea, and I think that will get us to better success criteria, measuring success of these programs if we get it to be more building based. And then I just have the last comment, which is one of the things, and I'm not going to steal any thunder, but the work that the Superintendent Student Advisory Group committee is doing around the one trusted adult is truly, I personally feel groundbreaking, and really proud with how they are breaking down different avenues of data that are coming into them and determining what trusted means and how it's defined, and how, depending on who you're asking, you're going to get a different definition. And I'm so excited for the board and the community to see all the work that they're doing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to close by saying thank you. I think it was really helpful. You all did an excellent job of linking the work of the audit, the curriculum audit, and all the other learning. And also, I know that you're really on the front lines of working with educators through our union partnership to ensure that those voices are really surfacing as we think to serve our students. So thank you for your attention to those details.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, we're moving on to 7.1. I'll ask Dr. Kelgadi if he would give his superintendent report.
All right, good evening, everyone, board and community. I'm so proud again of our Pride Award winners who are showcased this evening, and all of our dedicated teachers, staff, and families who work together in our mission to help our students. This past week, I was moved to email a reflection on our mission. I sent this to the whole community on Friday about our purpose and commitment to focus on what truly matters and to remember that, our students. Our mission is to provide them with the opportunities, support, and education they need to succeed. Both our students and staff bring unique backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences to our community. And this diversity in our community, all 68 square miles of it, is vital to who we are as here in SD308. Board policy, especially the board policy that was adopted this year regarding rightful presence, calls for us to prioritize a posture of learning as a community. Board, you know, this is something I've been thinking about a lot, and learning how we can learn to embrace the opportunities to reflect on challenges that arise and missteps even. We must hold ourselves accountable, and we are committed to doing that and using them as a valuable lessons to guide us towards improvement and growth. The work is really about upholding our core values of empathy, dignity, humanization, integrity, courtesy, and collaboration. These are not easy, but yet these are goals and ideals that we must commit to and call ourselves in. There's a phrase that I love is call each other in and not push ourselves away. We've got to call ourselves in and not push away, because sometimes that estrangement makes things worse. So these principles guide us as we strive to make sure every student can succeed in the best educational experience they can have here in our district, where they feel not only successful in their academic experiences, but where they feel safe and heard and valued. And for this and many of those reasons, we are committed to a participatory strategic planning process, which we introduced at the last public forum. And we really also want to make sure that as we're thinking about the allocation of our district funds and resources, we are using a master facility planning and the research and the support we have to make thoughtful and really fair and equitable decisions for our resources. Recently, we've received a number of inquiries via email and in conversation about private and public ventures to support district improvements. I know the board is extremely receptive to thoughtful projects and opportunities to promote solutions to improving our facility needs. Our systems, unfortunately, do not have limitless capacity. So our board and district team are committed to engaging in a methodical and coordinated approach to facility and school improvements. Phase 1 of our master facility plan has begun, and building evaluations are underway. I know we have Mr. Queen here who may mention that. More importantly, we are committed to a collaborative and strategic approach to assure sustained and ever-improving results. And with that, I conclude my remarks this evening, Board.
Thank you very much. 7.2, Student Board Member Reports. Oh, yeah, I guess we should. Forgot about those.
So I guess I don't conclude my remarks because we have so many exciting things happening in this district. I want to invite board members to share some of those exciting news that we always take time to celebrate and to hear multiple voices. So I turn it over to the board.
I will start.
Thank you.
Congratulations to Oswego East Junior Katie Malm, who won first place in the diving at the IHSA Swim and Diving Competition this past weekend. I know. And Addie Miller also finished second in the AWD. Somebody got to tell me what that means because it doesn't mean all-wheel drive. AWD 100 breaststroke. Breaststroke. So congratulations to Katie and Adie for their, and the whole Oswego Co-op swim and dive team. Great job.
As the son of a veteran who served in the Big Red One, it's awesome. It's awesome here every year, right? But on Veterans Day, but Veterans Day was full celebration again this year. Song, dedication to men and women who have served our country and inspire students every day. My personal favorite is a lot of the schools, I know they'll play like the song or their anthem, if you will, for the various branches. And that's pretty awesome to see as well. And every school celebrates its own way with thank you letters, assemblies, guest speakers, and more. I really applaud the district for what they do to celebrate their veterans, and we hope you've had the opportunity to enjoy the video, which is linked on our website, get a sneak peek into so many of these memorable celebrations. And so while it's great to honor our veterans on Veterans Day, we should honor them every day.
Thank you.
Congrats to the Oswego East girls cross country team and their coaches on their 24th place finish at the IHSA state finals. Congratulations also to our all-state athletes from OHS, Carson Cooney, football, 8A all-state, Sydney Haymaker, volleyball, first team all-state, Mia Yurkovich, volleyball, second team all-state, Ava Flanagan, volleyball, all-state honorable mention. Congrats to everyone.
At last month's Illinois Art Education Association Student Show, that is a mouthful, 6 of our students were named Student Art Ambassadors for K-12 art curriculum in Illinois. Ooh, congrats, Maximiliano Ballesteros, Caitlin Russell, Jenna Allen, and Cheyenne Beasley from Oswego High School, and Shia Love and Peyton Lustra from OE, and their educators and mentors. And I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
We are always proud to see one of our core values in action. In this case, we're talking about collaboration. A recent story highlighted the ongoing partnership between Wolf's Crossing Elementary and Bednarsik Junior High. Bednarsik's Family and Consumer Science 1 class carried out lesson plans in 3 of Wolf's Crossing kindergarten and first grade classrooms. And Dr. Zwemke, I hope you have their names and you'll be hiring them and at the appropriate time. This was a fun, real-life educational experience for all involved. Check out the full story on our website.
Nice.
Congratulations to the 3 students. Congratulations to the 3 students from OEHS and 18 students from OHS who signed their national letters of intent this month. These student athletes will continue their academic and athletic journeys at the collegiate level.
All right.
And last, 8 students were named semifinalists and 1 named commended in the 2024-2025 National Merit Scholarship Corporation Program. Congratulations to these students for your hard work and academic achievement. Okay, now we'll have our student board member reports.
Okay. During a coalition, a diverse group of students came together to support each other, recognizing and valuing the differences each group brings. Student groups contributed innovation and fresh ideas. Environmental groups focus on sustainability, and where cultural diversity groups emphasize rightful presence and respect for different cultures and identities. By sharing resources, collaborating on projects, and celebrating each other's unique contributions, we aim to build a strong, supportive community through knowledge and mutual respect.
Additionally, we discussed how important relationships are between students and our teachers, based on the values through axiology, trusting each other's well-means, showing respect, kindness, and empathy. For example, honesty helps build trust in relationships, while kindness can make others feel valued, appreciated. Empathy allows us to understand and share the feelings of others, leading to more supportive and caring interactions. By practicing these values, teens, and really anyone, can create a positive and meaningful connection with those around them, making their community a better place for everyone.
We learned of stories within Where We Come From by Koi, Gibney, Young Shin, and Wilson, and how their journey throughout their lives shaped their identities and impacted how they see the world. We were then given silhouettes created by Miss Sherry Worcester that had each of our various identities available so that we could create our own artistic stories. This will help catapult our Amplify event where we amplify student voices. This year's theme is Claiming Our Space. It takes place on March 13th at Oswego High School at 5:30 p.m. More details to come.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to our board committee reports, starting with Equity and Learning and Innovation.
At the Equity, Learning, and Innovation meeting, it was very similar to the items that we saw today. So we had a chance to dive into the framework that was presented, as well as a lot of the data presented on the school report card, and that work showed up here today. Very good.
Anybody else? Okay. Finance and Facilities.
All right. At the Finance and Facilities meeting, we discussed student fees and our collection rate. We looked at previous years as well as year-to-date, something that I believe you're going to be, what? Oh, okay, I was wondering if I was misrepresented. Yeah. Something that's going to be brought to the board routinely. Facility rentals, talking about the facility rentals fees and what we're bringing in for that. Human resources update. We were wondering kind of why that was being brought to the finance facilities, but then it was pretty clear why. They're looking at ways to increase revenues through human resources. There's some cool projects that's going on. I don't know if you want to talk about it or.
Yeah, Dr.
No,
yeah,
no.
I'd be happy to.
I'm going over your head.
Yep. We shared that evening about really focusing in on our staff in a three-pronged approach in terms of their physical health, their mental health, and their financial health. And we've laid out a program over the next 6 months to a year to achieve that. We talked about memberships at gyms and rush reimbursements and things like that. Since 2021, since the board and Human Resources adopted a rush reimbursement policy, Rush Hospital, a great partner of ours, has paid out to our own employees $500,000 of revenue coming back for simply going to the doctor through our affiliate. I think that's a huge celebration. In addition to that, we talked about some of our goals around an EBC audit. As you know, last year, upon the arrival of myself and Mr. Obafemi, we have switched to a employee benefits cooperative, and within that cooperative, we just recently completed a audit of dependents at a 98% clip. It was, to say the least, a grueling process, very similar to going to the dentist, but necessary. And this should happen in our system about every 5 years to make sure that we have on our insurance roll who should be on our insurance roll. So I appreciate everybody, in particular Glenn Campos, who is our benefits coordinator, and Dr. Adam Russick for their support. So many opportunities for Human Resources to connect from the finance perspective. As Mr. Obafemi and I talk about it, our human resources are our most important resource in our system. They also make up 80% of our budget. And so we want to make sure that we focus in on the financial health, our mental health, and our physical health of our most important asset, which is our teachers and our staff, so that they can do the great work with the kids on a daily basis. So thank you.
Yeah, and then I remember there was something with kind of our health insurance policy where they have different initiatives, and depending on how many people are participating in those initiatives, that reduces the cost, so brings us some revenue, things like that. So it was pretty interesting, and some big dollars. And then we also discussed the health and life safety survey. I think we're going to be going through that, so relatively soon. So.
Okay, and then policy and legislation.
Policy and legislation, we were able to review several policies that will come to the board through press, and that's mostly what we spent our time doing. We also chose some, as per what we decided is going to be a practice, to highlight some legislation or some bills going through the Illinois Assembly, and so we could do that now. You want to start?
I found this one interesting. SB, if I can read, because my eyesight. SB 3649, which is employee freedom of speech. Just kind of defines a little bit more parameters behind Workers' Freedom of Speech Act, and so talks about declining or attending or participating in employer-sponsored meetings or so forth, and kind of just, I don't want to read this entire thing, but it just kind of goes over the act a little bit more, and I think it's interesting to kind of ponder and look at when it comes to talk about freedom of speech and in the workplace as well. Talks about penalties potentially for the employer, so I think that's important to know as well. Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I think there's some changes there that are relevant to us.
I chose to highlight Senate Bill 1, which is the creation of the department at the state level for early childhood. The Department of Early Childhood Act This creates a new state agency that would oversee early childhood, when previously it was kind of overseen and managed by a variety of agencies. So hopeful that this will bring, necessary streamlining to early childhood. Mary Jo, did you have one you were going to have?
No, unfortunately, I have been kind of in and out of being under the weather, so I did not pick one for this time.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 7.4, board member comments. Any board member comments?
Okay, I do. I just want to, one of my goals has been to make the community more aware of us as a whole and who we are and how we're spending their money, et cetera. And so to that end, Mr. Obafemi and Dr. Kelgati, they did the presentation, I just showed up. And I set up a presentation at the Oswego Senior Center where they did a presentation on basically where tax dollars are going and how the school district budget works. We had a great slot. It was right before bingo. So excuse me. Anyway, I feel that it was well received. It's something that we're going to do again with a different topic next week. They're taxpayers and we're spending their money and they need to know where, and they've heard so many stories over the years and when their kids were in school that setting them straight, I mean that in a nice way, as to what's happening in the district, I think is pretty key to maybe getting a little bit more community involvement. So, I don't know, I thought that went well.
Yeah, it was very constructive dialogue, and they had great questions for us and about just some of the, misapprehension or clarifications. Raphael, did you want anything?
And we got a couple of feedback about things that folks have been talking about that we needed to know about, so we were able to address that. So it was very fruitful. Thank you.
We did not stay for bingo.
We did not.
At least I didn't. Oh, no,
we had to get back to work.
Anybody else? Okay. 8.1, the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Yes. Make a motion to approve all items under consent, including 8.1, minutes from the Board of Education meeting on October 21st, 2024. Open and closed session, minutes from the Board of Education workshop on October 28th, 2024. Closed session and minutes from the Board of Education forum on November 4th, 2024. Open and closed sessions. 8.2, to acknowledge the FOIA request received by the district. And 8.3, to approve the field trips for overnight and or over 200 miles.
Second.
Are there any questions on the consent agenda?
I do have a couple of questions. I reviewed kind of at length the field trips, and I have a question about a couple of them. First of all, I would like to say to the OHS band and the Professional Business of America, Business Professionals of America, and for the mock trial, they all did a great job of filling out their permission slips. But when we don't have things filled out, it makes me very uneasy about approving. For the boys bowling, there's no permission. They're not having permission slips done, parent permission slips, but for the girls, they are. They're actually the only one in the group that is not having a parent's permission slip. So that they check no. I think it's good business practice. I think it's also a liability. So I'm very, I have some questions about that. The other thing is that when they don't fill out where it's funded, we definitely have some equity issues across sports and activities and co-curricular and extracurricular. It's very helpful for the board to know how this stuff is funded. So when they don't fill that stuff out, again, I'm very uneasy about approving those things. And then for the mock trial minibuses, Mr. Obafemi, where does that cost come for? Because that's not in part of what their cost is for. Are we absorbing that as a district?
As it stands right now, we are, but we are moving to a system where organization will be assessed. their share of transportation. That's where we're going.
Okay. These are all things that, you know, when we look at our finances and understand where money goes and where we're leaking a lot of money, I think it's really important to, especially when we are using our minibuses, which we should, and that's what they're for, but understanding who is absorbing those costs. So I don't want to necessarily take the opportunity away from these kids, but I would ask that who is ever in charge of this make sure that those permission slips are filled out intentionally, and so we know everything.
So,
Thank you for the feedback.
so wait, so just so we're clear, when this comes before the board, we are not approving all of those logistical pieces. That should all be cleared up before it gets to us.
Correct.
And so whoever is responsible for that before it gets to us, those things should be addressed. Because all we're doing is saying that those trips that are over the, what is it, the 200 miles is all we're okaying. Because I know in the past, parents have been confused about what this vote is about. And sometimes they will come back and say, well, the board approved it. But that's not what we're approving. And so when there are issues like what Ms. Johnson is bringing up, I need to be really confident that before they get here, that those things are taken care of. And, you know, those kind of issues, we're not, because that's not what we're doing here. So is there anything that we need to be?
Doctor, sorry, anything that we need to be, I apologize.
Well, is there anything that we need to be, like, because I don't want to approve something and all the i's haven't been dotted and the t's crossed.
Correct.
I agree. I will follow up with the person who is responsible for this on both the boys bowling of why there was no permission slip and to ensure funding. So I appreciate the comments, and I will follow up directly.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Dr. Kincaid.
And then, oh, sorry.
Did you want to say something?
Dr. Kilgatti, do you, or who is the designee who signs these? Do you do it after the board? Is there a?
There's a process after the
Okay.
board, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Really, I want you to speak if you need to.
I'm just curious, like, I wonder if it, and I don't know, you'll do your due diligence to find out, but I wonder if it's like kind of a misunderstanding, because I know for when I was a coach, like, I don't ever remember using permission slips, but there's stuff that they had to fill out at the beginning, and I'm curious if maybe that covers it, doesn't. I'm not going to worry about it. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, we need to look into the facts, to your point, and I think you noticed something. We need to look into it. We don't have, we haven't spoken. We need to get some facts on the table. We can come back to the board with clarification on it, and I think
I just was looking for the inconsistencies, and that was the only of the 10 or so that said, we're not going to ask for a permission slip, so I kind of wanted to understand why. But also, when we get lax in our processes and our procedures, that's when things fall through the cracks. So
Correct.
if it's on us to approve it, we just want to make sure
So
all the
then-
i's are dotted and t's are crossed.
So what are we doing right now as a board? Are we only voting on a few or some being taken out? What do we?
I don't want to.
Okay.
Let's not hold on.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I trust that Dr. Kincaid will follow up and make sure that those things are done. I don't want to take any opportunities away from these students.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So
Mr.
then, oh, go ahead,
Mr.
Ursula.
Gatewood?
Aye.
Dr. Maria?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Venmus?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay. Mr. Obafemi, 9.1, financial statements and our investment schedule. I think there's some news.
Yes, we included the financial statement up to date in the board package. What I wanted to point out is on the revenue page there, where I know I'd mentioned that we're doing a more aggressive job of investing our money, even though we're complying with the Illinois Municipal Investment Policy. One example is property tax that we have that we received that sits in our reserve account. We budgeted $128,000 for the whole year. To date, just till the end of October, we've already exceeded that. We've made $505,000 already, just from investing more aggressively. So we continue to do that. And as far as the other expenses and revenue, they're in line with what we expect at this time. And I wanted to point out again, as you saw in the investment, as you see in the investment schedule, we continue to lather. And we actually had an investment placement of about $8.5 million last week, where some of the reserve that we have, instead of just sitting in a savings account, we invested it with a due date towards the spring period when we need that money. In the meantime, we're going to be earning some return on those investments. The last document I want to point out, I've been tracking the CPI.
Can I ask a question about the investment
yes, sir.
before you go? So, in your time you've been here, or any time that you've observed since you've been here, have we ever invested? If so, how much have we, approximately, not exact, but how much have we earned in the past versus this past year?
What I know is when I got here, we left our money in a savings account with PMA. And what we've been doing since is we've been actually placing them on a series of investment. We do CDs that are insured, backed up by the full faith and credit of the FDIC, the U.S. government. And we place them in such a way we don't invest more than $249,500, so that if anything happened to the financial institution, we're fully reimbursed by the U.S. government. We also have been doing agency funds, bonds. And so what we've been doing is we've been putting the money to work. We look at, since we have a well-developed cash flow, and we meet every month with our municipal advisor, we lay out the cash flow and we see where we need money. And when we don't need, we on average, we spend about $18 million a month on payroll, for example. And we spend another $6 million in operations. So when we lay out that cash flow, if we don't need all this money that we got now in September that is supposed to last till June, instead of just sitting in a savings account, what we do, we just ladder for different times during the year and try to get as much yield in conservatively invested instruments as possible.
So it's safe to say we've earned significantly more in the last year than we have in the past?
Yes, we did.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I was looking, looks like, on the schedule here, started in early October, all the funds come back early February, and in that time period, it's about $900,000. So that's significant.
Can I ask what you're looking at?
The investment schedule.
There's an investment schedule in there.
So if you look at the subtotals on.
Investment summary document, if you look at the board docs, is as of November 13th. Is that correct, Rob?
Yes.
Yeah, and you look at page
So at
6.
out of the date when this was pulled, we actually have $137.2 million cash on hand at that time. But I want to point out, though, that since then, we've had payroll on the 15th, which is approximately $9 million. We've also paid some operational bills related to other bills. So it's actually gone down from that. But this is a snapshot of data of November 13th.
Can I back up a minute too? You had talked about, and I can't remember. It was property taxes, right? We were ahead by what, $400,000, or?
CPPRT.
Okay.
I'll talk about that if you don't mind.
Go ahead. I just want to emphasize the difference.
So
that was part one.
Yeah, so I'm just real quick piggyback that. It doesn't surprise. I'm just more of a statement. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very happy and trust me, my head just went down when I heard savings account. So thank you. Like, I want to make sure that we give credit. And I don't want the following comment to come off the wrong way because it's not aimed at you. But it doesn't surprise me though that we're able and ahead of when we're investing. I mean, anybody can look this year, and if you're talking about your long-term investments or people who are investing, you had a great year. I understand, and listen, I'm not trying to downplay what people are dealing with and all that stuff when it comes to like inflation and those pieces, but it's a really complicated conversation to have with people. And I mean, I'm looking at my long-term investments, and I've been happy all year long. It's been great. And so thank you, because if we weren't, if you didn't invest, which I have a feeling that's where people are feeling it probably the most, if you didn't invest, you probably didn't see your portfolio expand. And it's been crucial. You should always, like, whenever we can, right, play it smart. But this year's been great.
He's keeping us short, though.
Right, because
And
we don't
liquid,
have
so,
a
yeah,
whole
just-
lot
yeah.
of money,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So, but
I mean,
we
I'm
still
not,
put
I
the
get
money
it. I'm
we
not
have to
saying,
work.
like,
no,
you know,
no,
but my
I
point
wanna
is,
make sure
like,
that the public
everything.
knows that we're not looking at.
And that's my ultimate question. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jared, finish. My ultimate question is, okay, we've got all this extra money. What are we doing with it? What are we doing with it? Are we?
Right, so
Are
the
we going
extra
to
money
Bermuda?
per se, I just want to point out that about 45% of the revenue that we get comes from property taxes, and we get it twice a year. We get the first installment in May, June, actually the biggest chunk in June, the first installment of the prior year property tax extension, and then we get the second installment in September, and we have to make it last for 12 months. As I pointed out previously, just payroll alone every 2 weeks is $18 million. And then we have some operational expenses that are not payroll related, that are non-personnel, light bill, gas bill, supplies that we buy. That's another $6 million there. So we have to really be careful how we spend that money while at the same time putting it to work. I believe last year, and the audit is going to be presented on the 9th, we made about $2.5 million just in interest alone from investment last year. Now, that's money we wouldn't have had if we hadn't invested. And if you think in terms of the fact that every 2 weeks we do $9 million, that's a pretty substantial contribution to our bottom line.
But to your point, Mr. Gatewood, it's not extra money.
No,
I guess
it's not
that's
extra
that's the
money.
point I was trying to make.
It's not extra money. Those are some of the
discretionary
reasons
spending.
why the actions we've taken to lessen our chances of having to borrow, right? By just keeping our eyes on the till, on the expenditure side as well as on the revenue side.
Yeah, because before you got here, we were using tax anticipation warrants to the tune of about $120,000 for 3 months, I believe it was.
Yes, that was the cost of issuance.
Mhm,
That
the
was
cost of issuance.
It was $20 million each year.
So it was $20
for
million
20 years,
for, yeah, we were doing that for a long time, and that was one of the things we as a board really wanted to get away from. And so how were you able to make that happen?
We look at our expenses very carefully on the expenditure side, which we have more control on. On the revenue side, we don't have as much control on revenue because we get a revenue mainly from property taxes, and then the last few years since EBF was passed, a big chunk we get from the state. And once we get, now the state is more regular. We get about $4.7 million every month from the state in EBF. The property taxes I mentioned earlier, twice a year. So what we have to do is we have to be very careful about what our cash flow need is and plan accordingly. And also invest the extra taxes that we get that we don't need at this point. Instead of it sitting in the account, we put it to work to get as much yield as possible. But while at the same time selecting conservative investment choices and making sure we comply with the Illinois municipal investment policy. So those are the things we look at it from the expenditure side and also from the revenue side, and we manage the money tightly.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Obafemi, we have some presentations regarding the recycling and disposal of electronics RFP. I want to invite, we've got Brent Kiger and Kevin McDonald here. If there are any questions regarding this proposal.
We'll get it. We'll get it.
Yeah, this first one is just talking about the recycling RFP. We don't have a formal presentation, but it is in the memo. We did go through the RFP process for our normal recycler. We had a couple of vendors bid on that RFP. However, after the bids were submitted, we found that our current vendor that we recycle with was more of a value, mainly because the items that we recycle in real life really have no value. They are parted out devices that are hull of what they once were. So our recommendation is to go or stay with our current recycling company.
And just to clarify, we're talking about obsolete devices, right?
I'm sorry?
Obsolete devices.
Oh, yes, obsolete
Just to
also.
clarify.
Yes.
When people hear recycling, it could be paper, it could be, so these are devices that are obsolete.
Yes,
and
they
that
are
we can
obsolete.
no longer use for parts, but we need to try to get rid of them.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions, board? Okay. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here and for your work on this.
And then
Okay,
no,
next
the
up.
next topic is theirs too.
Yep. 2 for 1 tonight.
Yes.
So
This
next up,
topic.
9.3.
Yep. This next topic is talking about the Chromebooks that we have in circulation. Last year, at the end of the year, there was a decision made to give out the handbooks to the graduating seniors. We think that it was a well-received program, mainly because, again, there's not a whole lot of value for us to either retain it or even sell it. They have, at that point, the devices that we have given out have been in circulation for 4 years. Although the devices are still supported by Google for updates, they have become somewhat antiquated as far as new devices for new students. So we are recommending that we continue this program, however, with the recommendation that we now, instead of a handout, we want to make it more of an incentive. And so we are recommending that the seniors that do not have fees to the district will receive their device. Anybody with current fees, they will need to turn those devices in.
With that, how do you wipe the devices, or do you just give them to them? Is there anything that's on the device that's decommissioned, like any software, or et cetera?
Yeah, the Chromebooks are very easy to manage. Within our admin console, when we deprovision them, it automatically, the next time the device talks to the network, wipes the device.
Got it.
And it's basically an out-of-box experience for the end user.
Got it.
I just had a question. You made your first statement by saying, oh, sorry, I'm over
Yep.
here. Your first statement was that you feel like there's no really purpose of keeping the device, but then the second statement was that you're only giving devices to students that do not have fees to the school.
Yep.
So I'm just confused, because then why would they have to return it if there's no purpose of you guys taking it back?
We could still use it for parts. There are still different levels that may have it, but there isn't value in trying to sell it and try to recoup costs. We may have it for parts or spares. When students may forget their device at school, we can use those as spares.
Is there any communications to the parents about the fact that there's an opportunity for their student to have a Chromebook if there are outstanding fees, to pay those fees, so that maybe that's an incentive for them to pay their fees?
Yeah, there hasn't been yet, but that is the plan of making this recommendation, that communication, if approved, would go out to the parents and students, specifically saying that if you pay your fees, the seniors get to keep their device.
I actually missed this note in here because I am familiar with them keeping their Chromebooks and stuff, and so I mean, I'd be okay with doing this year to see how it goes, but I'm really wondering if this will be an incentive for them to hand in their Chromebooks? And are we, if I think about students who might have outstanding fees, they might have other financial constraints in their lives at home, and a Chromebook might be actually more valuable for them to keep it as they transition out of high school so that they can apply for jobs and things like that. I don't know, but I also understand we need to collect fees. I'm not sure that this is the exact way that I would have approached trying to collect fees from students.
I can answer that. So our students who are eligible for free lunch, they don't have to pay the fee.
Okay.
The ones who are eligible for reduced, they pay a reduced amount.
Okay.
So this will be folks who didn't belong to either category.
Okay.
And are deemed based on their financial information as being capable of paying the fees.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
It doesn't exclude students who are eligible for this. So there are students who are eligible for this. So there's a category. Can you explain?
But I also think, do we know every student that is capable or not capable? There's a reason. I get it. But I'm gonna probably say this from now until my last board meeting. We have a lot of fees in this community, or in this school district, sorry. And what Amy said, I continue to reverberate. Those students may not know their parents owe fees, but if they need a computer for college or for a job or for something, I find this to be punitive, and I don't care for it as one voice on this board. I think there's plenty of other ways to collect fees, and I don't understand. I don't feel that this is just the appropriate way to do it or incentivize to do it.
I'm just wondering if it will be effective. Like, I'm not sure that I'm not sure that it will initiate people paying their own fees.
So I think to your question, so I think what I'm hearing is that there's some questions. So one of the questions in here, it says it was a positive experience. What I'm hearing is a request for some data. I think for the next, this is being brought to the board. So I would say that this is the information, and I would encourage the board. I'm hearing questions that are about, like, okay, so how does this, Mr. Obafemi spoke to, like, if a student qualifies for free and reduced lunch, they're not going to be excluded from getting those crumbs, right? So, but there are some gains and lessons learned. So what I'm hearing is that some important questions. Could you make sure that we have some of those in terms of why you've described this as unless you have the data right now, but you probably want some time to prepare that for the follow-up memo. I would say that some of the questions are like, why are you describing it as a positive experience? There's some concern that this may be seen as punitive. How does it address that? And so this was a pilot that was done last year. There's a desire to continue it. What was the data that came through that helped do that? So I think these are important questions, and I appreciate the board's questions.
But Dr. Cagliati, I'm thinking we did do the let's keep our Chromebooks last year, but the idea that we are now keeping the recommendation, like there's a change for this year that they would not, if they hand in their how am I reading this? Hold on. There is something new here, and I'm not sure we have the data that you're referring to, like.
Can you speak to that, Brian?
Yeah, the new part is to try and, if the student/family still owes fees to the district, they need to turn in their Chromebook, rather than it just being a handout to those individuals.
Okay.
And we have no data on how many last year paid fees in order to keep their Chromebook.
I misunderstood that.
The first time.
I misunderstood.
Yes. Well, I
Okay,
think the data then would be how many wouldn't have gotten it.
Yeah. How many students are we talking about? Because what Raphael said
because I see an
is not
administrative
in
effort
here
here
about
too.
students with, what Raphael said is not in here about, students with free and reduced lunch. It just, says if you owe money, you could hand in you need to hand in your Chromebook. But then you still owe money, right?
Yes. Right.
So why would I hand in my Chromebook?
Well, I guess the idea is somebody would hand over a check instead. But if it's, I don't know, I'm just, but I'll let you speak. Yeah,
and I guess part of what we're trying to do is, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, there was legislation passed that made it almost very difficult to incentivize parents to pay fees that their kids owe.
I think this was,
there was no longer any leverage. So, and we've seen a drastic reduction in fee collection. We really have.
And do we have an idea, for example? Well, I guess we wouldn't until we're at the end of senior year, right? How many people have outstanding fees? Like, how many seniors last year
We actually
would this
do.
have impacted?
We actually have. It's part of our annual financial report that the state asks us for. Since they passed this law, they're trying to see the impact of it on our finances. So there's a page in the annual financial report that actually asks us for graduating senior, how much did they owe, the last graduating senior. So that is included in the AFR for the 2024 that is going to be presented to the board next month. So that amount is actually in there.
And that amount, that would not include student fees that were owed by students with free and reduced lunch?
No, because
those fees
right,
would not
they don't,
necessarily
yeah,
exist.
That
they
shouldn't
don't
land
have,
on
right.
us, yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
have to pay. I mean, the students who are eligible for free lunch, they don't pay any fees.
Right,
The
so there wouldn't be
the
fees there,
kids who are eligible for reduced, they'll pay a reduced amount.
These are, yeah.
Oh, hi. You actually just answered my first one. But for my second question, how last year the computers wasn't worth that much, so you decided to just give them away. As computers are going through over the years, they keep developing. For example, last year, the computers didn't have a touchscreen, but now they do. And I see in the future different things about the computer will improve. So over the years, as things are improving and the price of computers will go up, will this plan still need to be like happening? Because if we keep giving away free computers as like computer prices go up to like $8 to like $10 to $50, would it become just a waste of money handing it out to people who have like the money for it, or no?
Well, when we look at the devices, we look at the value of the longevity here at the district. So a device that has already 4 years of wear and tear, if you will, on it, I guess kind of the sequence of what is going to happen for those devices, it's just spares for us. We don't want to provide that to a new student coming in, because now we're also talking about equity issues.
Got it.
So yes, it does have, the value will still be relatively low in comparison for the original purchase price. Honestly, the model, except for the model that is not touchscreen, has all been within, the last 3 years have all been within the same approximate price range.
And then sometimes they even go lower, I would
Okay.
think.
Yeah.
And then just to clarify, families that have free lunch, they don't need to pay the fees? Was that what you guys were talking
Right, they
about?
don't pay fees.
Okay, and then for people who don't have free lunch but still have fees to pay it, would there be a plan for where they have to pay it in full, or would there be a plan set where they can pay it like slowly up to graduation, and then when they completely pay the fees, then they get the computer?
We are happy to work out a payment plan.
Got it.
We are flexible. We just want to collect the money at the end of the day. So
I had a follow-up question, actually, thinking about what Callie said. My question was, do you have a range for these fees? Like, is it like a $5 fee, $500 fee that you're not providing these Chromebooks for? Because I feel like if a student owes $500 compared to a student who owes like maybe like less money of a fee, they should, like, do you have a range that you're going with when it comes to this fee?
that's a good point. We haven't thought about it. And I'll be very honest with you. From my point of view, I want all the fees collected.
Every dollar counts, every day, whatever it takes.
That's right. Babies don't go there with fees with them.
So, I think, did you have another question?
No, that was all. That was the only question
Great
that I had, because
questions.
I was a little bit confused. because you said that there was a positive outcome from last year. So like, I'm so confused about like changing it up this year, but I do understand, you know, all money counts.
Right.
But that was like
we
my
keep
only.
getting less.
I think he's trying to be creative in some incentive program because it wouldn't violate
Yeah.
the spirit of the
Play to
legislation.
pay to play, yeah, which is what it's called. It used to be you can
well,
withhold services and
You know
to
where I
kids if they owe money. The legislation made it so that, you know, essentials are you have to give it to them. But we don't, the district doesn't have an obligation to give a device to someone. So we are just extending that as a courtesy. And we're saying in order to get that courtesy, can you pay us what you owe us?
Mhm.
That's essentially what we're saying.
Do you gain anything by getting the Chromebook back?
Yeah, we can use it as parts to fix other devices.
Well, and it's actually an educational tool. I've seen it in practice at the high schools.
Mhm.
So,
I think this raises some questions. I'm sorry, Jared, go ahead. This is for information, so I guess some more information I would like is how much were uncollected fees, for example, from last year. I don't need that right now, but, and if possible, like how many students did that represent in the senior classes? I don't know if it, so we get a sense of how many people this could impact. And then if we move forward with this, and then are there any other ways that we're suggesting trying to collect more fees besides this from our seniors, or is this the only? Have there been other brainstorms around this? And then if we move forward with this idea, I'd like to see what it looks like once we enact it.
Yeah. So Mr. Obeff, I think either tonight or next time, I think you can bring in more detail around fees collection, period. I know that's something that your team has been working very hard to understand and address. I know there are lots of questions about, for example, sports fees, which parents submit, but really are a small, they subsidize our overall expense on sports. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of questions about fees and how they're used. So that is something we can come back to. I know that the scope of this was really to focus on one part of it, but you're really bringing up a more holistic and how are we thinking about the whole package of fees. Yeah. And so I think that is something, Mr. Obafemi, if you don't mind, and I will consult, and either it's at the December, because I know we're in the midst of the levy process, or in January, if you don't mind, we can bring it.
We'll do. We'll bring back the additional information requested. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just the only last thing I'll say is I'm also thinking about enacting this process. A senior keeps their Chromebook, doesn't pay their fees. Someone's gonna go and take it from them. You know what I mean? Like
in the middle of the night.
You know, it's having worked in high schools before during graduation time when you're trying to do these last things. I just want to be, considerate of that time period as well. But I know we need to collect fees too, so I want to be, cognizant of both.
Yeah, you probably get back a lot of broken computers.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
When the seniors are done with it, previous to last year, we would receive them back, cracked screens,
Yeah.
keys missing, blah, blah, blah.
So in some cases, they might, they might just hand back their computer and be like,
They could.
my fees remain.
They could, but I think also if we start this plan, seniors understand that, hey, I'm going to take this potentially after 4 years. I'm going to take better care of it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the original legislation was really about transcripts and report cards and access to grade-based information, diplomas. When it, as Mr. Obafemi mentioned, it changed a few years ago. So it really was to allow access to those items, specifically the diploma and the transcript.
Yeah, I think I'm remembering some trauma from that when we were when I worked at a high school and we were trying to collect fees and parents wanted access to all this stuff, and it was just, yeah, it was a lot.
That is
Emotional.
what's not allowed in.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I have one more question. Sorry. Is the fees the fee that you pay in the beginning of the school year?
Be a variety of fees.
Is the school fee what you pay in the beginning of the year?
Well, it depends by building and by grade, but based on the classes that you take, you could accrue more fees, or if you take different sports
So any.
driver's ed fee.
Oh, because I was gonna ask, like, you can maybe, I don't know if you already have this data collected, but between freshman year, when a student first receives their Chromebook, and how they decide to pay among these fees up until their senior year, is there like a reduction of how much they're actually paying every year as they go throughout their grade level, or is there an increase in these fines? And then figure out where we get that imbalance of students or parents not paying for these fees starting from the freshman year to the senior year, so that maybe you can reconsider another way about collecting your money at the end of their senior year instead of taking their Chromebook.
I think what I like to recommend is, Brent and Kevin, if you would invite to meet with our student advisory team and get their feedback and include that in the next presentation, and I think a number of other things. So we want to thank you all for your time and your presentations tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we want to invite Clayton Halderman and Charlie Johnson for an update on our health, life, safety survey for our junior high schools. Welcome.
So Dr. Calgatti, I'd like to speak on this for a
of
minute.
course, and I want to lead in with Mr. Queen.
So this is a survey that we're required and mandated by the state to do every 10 years. This is a process that we started last year with our high schools. District our size, we need to run this in 3 phases.
Did you say we started this last year?
We started this last year with both high schools.
Okay.
And our first phase. So this is our second round phase with the junior highs, where we walked through the buildings with Kluber, and we identified things in a priority with urgent, required, and recommended. To document all that information and get it down so we can move through the process of completing those tasks and getting those safety concerns taken care of.
Great, thank you.
Charlie?
Okay, I'm all done. I don't have to say anything more. We're good.
That was my goal.
Thanks, Bill. For all of you were here last time to go through this. As Bill mentioned, this is the a 3-phase process for your district, simply by size. It is a requirement. You can go to the next. Can you go to the next page? Thank you. Again, there are 22 academic buildings that we surveyed, that we will survey when we're done with this process by the end of next summer. Actually, this time next year, because we'll go through the same thing of presenting you the information. We have gone through the 2 high schools last year. This year was focused on the junior high schools. We had 5 buildings totaling over that's not right, 900,000, not 9 million square feet of building, housing over 3,700 students. The total square footage of the district we've talked through. Again, as Bill mentioned, we have the categorizations, A, B, and C priorities. As discussed previously with the facilities team, we've migrated all of the C elements, the recommended elements, to district staff to look at and review, because those are recommended, not required by the state. So Bill and his team have those, and Bill has a plan to get those into your system to become work orders, essentially. Again, our methodology is we send out teams of people. We have engineers and architects that go out and review everything from the roof to the buildings and grounds, to the grounds as well, to walk around the buildings. And we produce violation schedules, and we produce safety reference plans, which are kept at your buildings, and we produce what's called a safety reference document. And they're all here. This is the safety reference document, safety reference plans, and then the schedules of violations. Again, we reviewed these items with district personnel, walking through, kind of highlighting the big ticket items, which is what we're going to do for you tonight as well, and also identifying those things that they can accomplish themselves or put on their own to-do list. Then after tonight, next board meeting, you guys will approve this list of items, and then Kluber will input them into the IWAS system and submit them to the Regional Office of Education, who then reviews that and submits it down to ISB, to the state, and then the state comes back and says, yep, please continue to get those things done, which is a great thing to talk about in terms of key points. Last year, as Bill mentioned, we did the 2 high schools. And the interesting thing about the 2 high schools is that, well, your staff has been working on some of those items previously identified. So in this document, you'll see a reduction in costs associated with the high schools, but then you'll see the additive of the junior high schools that are there. So some of the high level overall for the junior highs, there's like 1.4 million between the A and B priorities of work, and I'll identify some of the high ticket items. Most of the items fall in the B priority, which I think is important to showcase, because the A ones, as you might remember, need to be accomplished within a year, and B ones can be accomplished within 5 years. This next slide, sorry, I walked through that slide and didn't let you get a chance to read it. This is a graph where we've kind of outlined, and I've included the high schools at the top as well as the 5 junior high schools. And one of the items that I added for your benefit, Mary Jo, is that which of these high-level ticket items, which category they fall in. So for Bernardsick, there's a chiller replacement and a carpet replacement, which are both B categories at this point. And they take up more than half of this big red bar down at the bottom. Okay? And same with these other items at Murphy and Plank. Asphalt paving, as you know, Bill and his team are working through each schools to try to jump on those. Those are big ticket items between asphalt paving and carpet replacement in a building wide. Those numbers get pretty high. This next slide, you might remember from last year. This was the high schools that we showed you, and the only thing I'm pointing out for you is these are last year's numbers, and when we roll into this year, you can see those values coming down. So when I go to the combined this year with the high school and the junior high schools, I don't know if you can read up there, but the number at Oswego East High School was in the A priority was like 118,000, so they've done some work there, as well as many in the B priority as well. And for Oswego High School, also a reduction there, that these have come down between these 2 numbers from last year. You have access to the entire report in your backup, so you can see each building's schedule of violations and walk through them on your own. But if you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Mr. Queen, anything else you want to add?
What is the purpose of putting the expenditure per student?
That was from, that's a hangover from years past, that we've added, that there was an effort at one point to see payment across the district that was commensurate to the students and how many students were in a building. It's also a document that we had put into the Envision plan before. So that rolls in, that they align to each other.
So it's specific to our district?
These are specific. These enrollment numbers are updated as of this last demographic report. We got those values from the district.
Well, I think you're saying this request is specific to the district, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. Yes, yes, 100%. No,
It's not standard.
yes. This particular summary sheet is solely for your benefit. It doesn't go to the state in terms of cost per student. That's so you're aware of where the costs are needed, so that you can see them by building. Thank you, Donna.
Obafemi, Mr. Obafemi, do you have these numbers already incorporated into our?
No, the majority of this we can pay for out of our operations fund.
Okay.
So that's the goofy thing about the health and life safety. It's one of those unfunded mandate. And there's a health reason why.
It's an unfunded mandate, you said?
It's an unfunded mandate. And it's for health and safety reason why the state requires it. but the state doesn't provide us any money
Of course.
as to how to pay for it.
Mhm.
And we still have a 1,000 other things as a district that we need to fund.
Mhm.
So what we try to do, we try to, as much as possible, have our facility folks do some of the work internally. And then if it becomes a major issue and we have the money, we'll do some of it. But we don't have the means to be able to do all of this all at once.
Right.
Yeah.
So how does this, Dr. K, fit into our comprehensive facilities plan?
There's going to be an overlap. It's going to be an overlap. Some of this will be things that once the facility assessment happens, it will be an overlap about things that needs to be fixed.
Mhm. And then when do we start the elementary building?
We'll start them next summer as soon as your students are out of the building. Actually, Kluber, prior to that, will be planning when our staff could get in there. And then
Mhm.
as soon as they're out of the building, we'll start to make our trips to walk around the elementary, as well as Brokaw is in that group as well.
And so based on what we know about your experience with the high schools and junior high, do we have any idea like where we might come in as it relates to the elementaries and the dollars?
Yes, unfortunately, we do.
Okay.
And the biggest indicator of what we know is that in years past, the district has not been successful in managing the health, life, safety work. Prior to last year, we could probably say with very high certainty that items that were on your previous list in 2017 will be on there again. And I can say for the junior highs, that was 100% true. For the high schools, it was probably 85, 90%, depending on which building. So the high schools have a larger staff, if that's fair, that were able to accomplish a lot of these things before. But the bigger plus, and I think this is a big kudos to Bill and his staff, is that now they're aware, because I think a lot of the building level folks weren't even aware of these documents, that they kind of stayed at central office and not at building level. Bill's building level team has these documents as soon as he does. And I think that's a plus. And the data that I showed related to the high school and the work that they were able to accomplish over this last year speaks to exactly what Mr. Obafemi said, is now they're actively pursuing completing this work.
And so the dollar amount you're thinking might be?
I can get that back to you. I don't have it at the tip of my tongue because it's in the older document that I didn't bring. I only brought your newer ones, but I can send that forward and let you know, and give you a heads up. Absolutely.
And it goes up every year. As we all know, cost of
There's more
construction
things
has
get on.
gone up considerably. So, yeah, it goes up every year. It's one
Not
of
only
those
that, we have to escalate the costs that were originally put into that document in 2017 to be commensurate with today's dollars. But I will forward that dollar figure to you, Dr. Mafemi, or Mr. Mafemi, when we're done. I was thinking, Dr. Filgotti, but Mr. Mafemi, I will get it to you.
Thank you. That would be very helpful.
Yes.
I think that's the important piece, and I think I want to make sure people realize that by not fixing these things now, they'll only get more expensive in multiple aspects. First of all, breakdown is like going to be higher, and second of all, I mean, you want some inflation. I know that sounds terrible, but the alternative to inflation is deflation, and you certainly don't want that. So the price is just going to go up anyways from that as well.
The other element is some of those B priorities all of a sudden bubble up to A priorities and become more urgent for the district, which you all are familiar with.
Mr. Queen, you had a comment you wanted to make?
We've just taken a very aggressive approach with getting these jobs completed in a timely manner. I got a great team. I got great staff underneath me, and we've been really reactive to these situations and just trying to stay ahead of them.
In the last couple of years, we've actually appropriated more money to get some of this stuff done.
What exposure do we have from the state level if we give a report back now?
Unless they want to pay to do it.
The big asset that the district has is, as Mr. Obafemi said, you're not asking them for dollars dedicated to this, so therefore they're less concerned. They are concerned, but they're less concerned about your prosecuting of this work. The good news, again, is that the district is taking a proactive approach to prosecuting it versus a reactive. Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
thinking here this week. I was thinking about letting the students go. I don't know. Yeah. You guys can.
Thank you for your contributions today.
Yeah, have a great night.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Obafemi, the 2024 tax levy adoption cycle update.
It's the time of the year again when we have to do our levy preparation. As I always say, the levy makes up the majority of the revenue that the district gets. And so it's important that we do this. It pays for a lot of the money that we get as a district. So, where's the clicker?
Dr. Kincaid, can you share the clicker?
Clicker.
Good evening. See you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, there's a specific statutory adoption cycle for the levy. And today we are presenting the levy to the board for approval for resolution. And then on the 28th, we have the publication teed up. We'll do a truth in taxation notice in local newspaper. And then on the 9th, we'll have a public hearing as required by statute for the levy. And then by law, we need to file the levy the last Tuesday of December with the 3 counties where the district levies from. Now, I've gotten a couple of emails already from citizens who saw the posting online, and they had questions. And what I had to explain to them, a levy is just a request. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what we get. And what we actually get is what is called an extension, the actual amount that is extended. And the reason why that is important, and I need to clarify, is that the way the law is written is it's a little weird in that we need to complete the levy and have it filed by December, last Tuesday in December. Except the assessors in the 3 counties where we levy from, they don't know the equalized value of property till January. So what we have to do, we have to make an assumptions. And then the assessor they'll true up the actual number, and they'll come up with a number that is actually the right number. So when people say the levy, they assume that is automatically the extension. It is not the extension. So one of the driving factor of the levy is the CPI, and it's specific to that is the prior December CPI. So for the 2024 levy, the CPI factor that we'll be using is the December 2023 CPI that came out in January of 2024. And another important information that goes into calculating the levy is the equalized assessment value, or EAV. And what that is the value of all taxable property in a taxing area. And that final number is actually going to be determined by the assessor. There are processes of appeal, and that may go all the way to the circuit court before the final determination is made. And that's not going to be made till next year. So I pointed out what the final levy will be is governed by PTEL. And that's the property tax extension limitation law, which says it can be 5% or CPI, whichever one is lower. So even though we calculate the levy with a high amount, we will never get more than what the CPI is. And I'll talk some more about why we do what is called balloon levy later on. So this is where the money that the district used to fund itself comes from. 48% is from property tax. So it's by far the largest source of revenue for the district. And then over the last few years since EBF went into effect in 2018, it's become a larger share. Before then, the state contributes normally about 12 to 15%. So EBF has been a game changer for us, especially since we were a Tier 1 district. And then the rest of the revenue falls into 4% federal, 4% local, and then the rest of it. Now, I know Mary Jo asked me about CPPRT. Now, CPPRT is considered local fund, but it's not really, it's local, but it's not property tax. What CPPRT is, back before the new Illinois Constitution in 1970, what used to happen is each municipality will actually go out and they will go to all the companies and factories that make products, and they'll try to determine the value of the equipment that they use to make those products. And once they determine the value of the equipment, then each municipality can then tax those equipment, which is why the term personal property replacement tax, that's where that term came from. But then after the Illinois Constitution, starting in 1979, what the Department of Revenue decided is we would determine the amount that companies will be taxed. But instead of actually going out and doing personal property determination, what they did is they set an amount based on the structure of the company. If it's an S Corp, they pay a certain amount. If it's a C Corp, they pay a certain amount. If it's a partnership, they pay a certain percentage. So it was benchmarked to whatever the municipality got back in the 70s, and that's what they continue to get now, which is weird in that some of those communities, if you think about some of the communities that had nuclear plants before, where those nuclear plants have closed now, they still use the same benchmark that was used back in the 70s to get the same amount. Now, the last 3 years or so, once COVID started and it kind of went down a bit, businesses ramped up to be able to produce more products. And what that did is it created an increase in company profit under the CPPRT. So we went from pre-COVID receiving about $2 million in a district in CPPRT to last year, we actually received a record $6.4 million. But when doing the budget projection for 2025, I kind of figured that things are going to peter down, that was a one-time bump. So we projected CPPRT of being 2.5 million. And as things will come in, we only were allocated $2 million. So we only had to make up about $500,000 in revenue compared to if we had estimated $6.4 million that we got the year before. It would have been catastrophic for us financially. So going forward, we believe that CPPRT is going to go back to pre-pandemic, which is going to be about $2 million. So the levy, what it does, it funds the budget. But the way the levy works is it crosses 2 fiscal years. There's the first installment and the second installment. Now I'm going to try to explain this as simply as I can. The first installment of a levy is actually not that current year levy. If you remember what I said earlier, the assessor is still trying to determine what the valuation of our taxable property is. So what the assessor would do is they would take the prior year, where they had the actual levy calculated already, and they will give us 55% of the prior year levy, and we get that in normally in May, June. And that's in the current fiscal year when the levy was developed. The second installment is actually the real levy for that year, because by then the assessor knows what the valuation of the properties are, and then extension can be made. And then that second installment comes to us in the fall, September, which is the beginning of another fiscal year. So I always try to explain that levies cross 2 fiscal years instead of just one. Most people think it's one, but it actually goes through 2 fiscal years. So I want to point that out because it's important in this case. The first installment that we received of the 2023 levy was based on the 5%. The 5% for the first and the second one. But the second, the 2024 levy that we're going to get in the first installment in the spring is going to be based on the 3.4 CPI. So it's going to be a lower amount in the 2024 than it was in the 2023 because CPI was lower then. So I talk about CPI a lot because when PTEL was passed back in 1991 and applied to the Color County in 1994, what happened is the increases that a school district in the Color Counties of Cook, Kendall, McHenry, Kane, and Will County, and all those counties, it has to be pegged to CPI. So it's 5% of CPI, whichever one was lower. The last couple of years, in 2022, actual CPI was actually 7%. 2023, actual CPI was 6.2%. But in those 2 years, we have to use 5%. And I would say the PTEL took effect back in 1994. The last 2 years were the first time ever where CPI was actually 5%. The highest it was before then was 4.1. So if you go back the 30 years that PTEL has been in existence and you do the average of CPI, it's actually been about 2.5%. I remember a few years ago when CPI was 1 base point, 0.1. I remember a couple of years ago too when it was 70 basis point and 80 basis point. So what we are seeing right now is abnormal for CPI. So I just wanted to show what drives CPI. Things like housing, apparel, utilities, and the things that most people spend the majority of their money buying. If the prices of those go up, then CPI goes up for that given month. So I wanted to show historical CPI going back to 2013. If you saw in 2013, CPI was 1.5. And then we had those 2 outliers that were brought on by COVID. In 2021, where CPI was 7%, and then in 2022, when it was 6.5%. In those 2 years, that was where we used the 5%. But now the CPI that we're going to use for the 2024 levy that we're presenting tonight is at 3.4. So the district would not be getting as much revenue in property taxes as it did in the last couple of years. Yes.
As much of an increase.
As much of an increase.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. Yes, thank you. So I wanted to show 2 different ways of showing that. The first one was the line, but then I wanted to go back to the inception of PTEL. And you can see that this is what CPIs look like. And the average, as I mentioned before, has been about 2.5. So when we do projections moving forward, we know what this year's CPI is, but we need to do projection for the next 5 years. So going forward for the next 5 years, next year, I'm assuming 2.5 CPI. Up to date, if you look at 12 months up to date, the document that is in the board doc, actual CPI from September to September is actually 2.4. But we're assuming that Christmas, which is the December CPI, people tend to shop more then. So which is why I'm assuming it will be closer to 2.5 as opposed to what it is right now. But in the out years from the 25 levy all the way to 2030, when I do my projection, I'm assuming CPI of 2%. Because if you go back, which I've actually done this, I went back to 1914. I looked at CPI from 1914 to date, and what you see, the average has been 2%, which is what the feds always try to set as the benchmark for inflation.
You said 1914?
1914. Yes. And I'm happy to share that.
But anybody want to contest in the audience?
No.
Yeah, he was
No, but I will add one thing.
How much time we got tonight?
I will add one thing. That 0.1%, that was the year the Great Recession started. So that's why I said earlier, be careful
Yeah.
I'm not saying you want high inflation, but you certainly don't
Right,
want no
right,
inflation.
I remember doing levy then too. It was painful. It was painful. It was
What
very
levy?
painful. So this is the levy that we are proposing in 2024. The Ed Fund 94.6, and if you saw that, that's actually higher than what it was the prior year. And when we get there, I'll show comparison. And for operations, 15.9, transportation, 8.1. What we've done, we've steadily increased the amount of money that we actually levy in transportation. And since we have a cap, we actually couldn't levy anymore. What we've done, we've taken what we would have levied in education and put it in transportation, since we've spent more in transportation than we've received as far as revenue, state reimbursement, as well as fees that we collect. Special education, 10.9, IMRF and Social Security. Those two funds, they're actually lower than what we levied last year. And the reason why is, by statute, you only levy what you need in IMRF and Social Security. You're not supposed to levy any more than you need. And in looking at the reserves that we have in both funds, we do not need to levy what we've done the last couple of years. And I think what happened is, a few years ago here, the fund balance for those two funds were lower than they needed to be, so it was made up. But we've gotten to a point now where we didn't need to levy as much. And what in the levy strategy that has been presented tonight, what we've done is then took the difference and then tried to levy them in the Ed Fund instead, which is where the majority of our expenses comes from. And that's also the fund that provides us the most flexibility. As far as what we can do, we can transfer it to other funds. We can do what we need to do with that. And then working cash, we only levy in 214. And what that is the district's bank. And whatever we have in working cash can be loaned to other funds, and the money has to be paid back within 3 years of the loan, without having to pay an interest.
Can I ask a question here?
Yes,
As
sir.
you know, I was going to ask this question, right? About, can you explain to me like how that works as far as maybe from a percentage standpoint? Like I know we're capped at CPI, but
Right.
how does that work when it comes to adjusting like what we're bringing in for each of those funds?
So there are some funds that have rate limitation, and some funds don't. The Ed Fund has some rate limitation. It also has more flexibility. O&M doesn't have rate limitation. Transportation doesn't. Special education doesn't. But IMRF, you get to levy what you need for IMRF. But working cash has a rate limitation, and you can't really spend money directly from working cash. So you don't tend to levy more. It's more of a bank as a backup in case another fund needs to borrow money.
So I'm not saying we would want to do this by any stretch of the imagination, but let's say you levy transportation by, I'll use simple numbers so that it's like not complex. So let's say you wanted to levy transportation at 10%. How would that affect your ability to levy elsewhere, or would it not?
Okay, so the aggregate doesn't change. So it's kind of like a pot. You can levy a pot, and then you can distribute it. So if you levy more in one, then you have to levy less in the other. It's kind of like a bail. It's a balancing thing that you have to do. You can't get, and I let people know that. They see the levy, and they think you're going to increase it by all this money, but we really don't. The most we can get as far as increase request is what CPI is. But what we do, this may be the time that I talk about it, we do what is called balloon levy. And the reason why you do balloon levy, you look at last year's extension, you add CPI to it. And then what you also do then, you have new construction. Nobody knows what new construction is going to be until the levy is completed. That's the thing. And new construction is not capped. But the problem with that is, if you don't balloon levy, you get data from the municipality to see what the economic development is as far as new construction. But that data is guesstimation. Nobody knows. So you do, based on the data that you have, you try to infer what the new constructions are. and then you have to put it in there. Now, if you miss on that and you don't balloon, that becomes the new benchmark. That means you under levy. So that means that new benchmark becomes the baseline for future levy. You can't go back and ever recoup that. So in order to protect against that happening, what you do what is called balloon levy, knowing that you actually probably not going to get that, but you're trying to make sure that you don't leave any money that the district need to operate on the table and create a situation where you have a lower baseline for future levies.
Thank you.
So I wanted to point out we have a pretty high bond and interest. And I want folks to know that goes back to the referendum of November 7, 2006, when the district was growing by leaps and bounds. And we have a lot of children showing up here who needed to have a school. And the only way the district can pay for that is to do that referendum. And that referendum was actually approved for $450 million. But thank God we didn't issue all that bond. We issued about 250 of them. And actually, the amount was so big that we actually had to go to Springfield and ask for legislation to allow the district to be able to have a referendum for that big amount. But we only issued $250 million. And of that amount, we've been paying approximately $36.9 million a year in debt service. And what we've also done along the way is the older debt, when we can have a situation where interest rate is lower at the present time than it was that we issued it for, what we did what is called refunding. And we took the savings that would have gone to the bondholders and we gave it back to the taxpayer. It may not be a significant amount of money, but every little bit counts. The last one we did was a refunding of the 2014 bond, which we just closed on November 6, I believe. And that refunded about $300,000 plus to taxpayers here. And before that, in the spring, we did something similar to the 2024 B, which was issued in 2013, where we had a low interest rate, and we were able to refund some of that interest rate that we would pay to bondholders, to taxpayers. But I want to point out, you can only do that after the bond has been out for 10 years. Bondholders want to make some yield before you can refund those bonds. So we can only do that after 10 years, and if interest rate is favorable to us. Something else that I want to point out is, as we keep paying down this debt here, the amount that we owe keeps going down, so that by the time we get to 2027, we will see a significant decrease in the bond payment that we have to make right now. And the reason, too, if you think about it, I want to explain this. If you heard me, I said the bonds were issued back in 2026 for $251 million.
2006, you mean?
2006,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 2006. And we still owe the same amount, even though we've been making payment. The reason why that is the case is because of how the bonds were structured. A big chunk of the bond that was issued before was issued as a capital appreciation bond, what you call a cap bond. And you do that in order to make the bond payment easier for us to make. Because if we were paying everything all at once, it would have been a higher amount for us to pay every year. So the downside of the cap bond is that you defer interest and you defer principal, but when you do that, though, they don't go away. You just have to pay a higher amount later. So I wanted to include a table that compares what the actual extension, not the levy, what was extended by the three counties, Kendall, Kane, and Will last year. And those are in 2023 extension, those are what was extended. Altogether, $125.9 million, less bond and interest. Bond and interest is actually levied separately, directly, because whenever we issue a bond, we send a document to those three counties, and the counties levy those, and it goes directly to that fund. We don't mingle it with the operational funds. So when you look at, I think I mentioned earlier that we're asking for the dollar change in the ed fund. A big chunk of that is the levy strategy, where we levy less in IMRF and Social Security, and levy more in education fund. And if you go down, you will see a decrease, a corresponding decrease in the IMRF and Social Security. So you see the IMRF and Social Security went down by the same amount. So yeah, I just wanted to show that the percentage. But at the end of the day, what we are asking for as a levy with a balloon included is 5.99, knowing fully well we would not receive that. The most we're going to receive as far as an increase is CPI by statute. The county clerk cannot levy, they cannot extend any more than what CPI was, which is 3.4. But we put in the balloon to capture new construction, which we don't know yet. So, and this is what I try to say here too, that the balloon is 5.99, but that's not the actual amount. Because we're requesting it before we know what the total amount of EAV is going to be, as well as new construction. So why levy to cap? The critical reason is that the majority of the fund that we use to run the district, 48% comes from property tax. So in order for, and we know for the last 3 years, inflation has been high. The cost of everything has gone up. The cost of electricity, cost of gas, everything has gone up. So we have to keep up with the cost, the increase in the cost of everything. Even our educators, when we negotiate contracts with them, they expect to get an increase commensurate to inflation. So we have to try to keep up with that. And another thing, another reason we want to do that is it was perfect timing. The architect who did the health and life safety just left. We have millions of dollars in life safety work that we need to do. The only source of funding for that will be from the levy. That's a big chunk of it. Another thing is we need a rainy day fund. We need to start building our reserve. The good practice is for a district to have 25% of its operational fund in reserve. We're nowhere close to that. And in case of unforeseen circumstances, if you remember when COVID happened, no one was predicting that, and the economy just kind of froze. Thank God that there was ESSER funding. I don't know what we'll have done as a district, since at that time we didn't have much of a reserve. So that's another reason why we need to levy what the district is entitled to be able to start building our rainy day fund, which is essentially a savings. And if we do that, then we'll be less reliant on what I call a payday loan, which is the tax anticipation warrant, where we're borrowing money so we can tide us over for the next couple of months. From the levy, so we get the first installment, if you remember, in May, June. We get the second one in September, and we have to make it last again in September till May, June. So if we have a reserve, we can weather that without having to do short-term borrowing. And when you borrow short-term, you pay high interest, you also pay issuing cost.
And I would just add, from a historical standpoint, part of the reason we got ourselves into the issues that we did here is because this was not the philosophy we were operating under at all. We were stagnating revenues in an already precarious situation.
Right. And that's an important point. And the other important point that I want to point out, one of the reasons why we have a higher tax rate, in addition to the fact that we're paying outstanding bond and interest, is the fact that we have a very homogeneous tax base. A lot of communities, if you go to Valley View next door, not too far from here, they have a lot more commercial base in addition to their residential base. 90% or 88% to be precise. So if you round it up, 90% of our taxes come from residential, single-family homes. So as a result of that, there's no burden sharing, if you will, that will exist if we have more commercial here. So that is another reason why we have a higher tax rate relative to that. But we know we need those funds to provide a world-class education to our children.
Is there a way to restructure our capital appreciation bond? Like when we've been refinancing, like you know how you refinance a house, you can go from a 15 to a 10, you can do all sorts of things to help with your savings? Is there anything we can do?
At this point, that was the agreement that we reached. We defer interest, we defer principal. So those bondholders, they're expecting to be paid now. And because they've waited without getting what they should have gotten.
So
in
if
the
we're
way of-
spending $36 million a year and we are not even doing anything.
We are. One chunk of it is the cap. That's about 80 million.
Okay.
Out of
okay.
the 251 million.
All right.
The rest of them are just GO bonds that we're hitting pretty good.
Okay,
So,
all right.
yeah.
And then when you hit a certain point, it really starts to come
Yes. It's kind of like if someone took out a mortgage, and if you remember back in 2008 or before the bottom fell out, there were folks who were taking interest-only mortgage, where the first 10 years they were only paying interest, and they didn't pay the principal. And then once after the 10 years, then the principal and the interest came due. And so the amount that they were paying then ballooned up. So it's something similar to what we are seeing here. And we did that strategically to be able to make the payment more affordable for us.
Of course, yeah. Okay, thanks.
Well, and the other part to add here real quick is because we were operating under that previous philosophy, that's part of the reason we have not been able to upkeep our buildings.
Yeah.
And so those pieces are an issue as well as, I mean, at some point, those aren't young buildings anymore, and.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll never get that money back.
Right.
And it continues to.
Oh, yeah.
It's still doing
Yeah, it becomes the lower baseline.
Yeah,
and
we're
yeah.
probably at like $60 million at this point.
So I'm bringing this up even though we don't have any TIF due right now, but I get calls sometimes, email, folks asking me about how TIF impact a levy strategy, a levy development. Right now, we don't have any TIF that is due, but I know we have a couple of TIFs in the taxing area for the district. We have a TIF that was established by the village of Oswego, and there's also a couple of TIFs that were established by the village of Montgomery. But those TIFs are not coming due. And I personally am a big supporter of TIF because if it's set well, a lot of time you have an area that, but for investment in TIF, growth will not happen. And if it's done well, over time, when the property goes back on the tax roll, it creates a really good increment that the district can then draw on. And it lessens the burden on residential property owner from having to pay higher property tax. So we are recommending tonight that the board accept and approve the 2024 tentative tax levy as presented, authorize the 2024 tax levy public hearing to be held on December 9 at the board meeting then. Thank you for your attention. Any discussion, any questions, please? I know it's not a real sexy subject, but it's fundamental to our existence.
I would say the opposite around here, honestly. I was going to say, there's been so much education over the last decade that I would disagree. I think there are a number of people who get it who used to not get it. So trust me, there's some people who that's what they want to hear. That is really what they want to hear.
We know that not everybody gets it, because I still see all over social media that we want to raise everybody's taxes because we're talking about the levy, and I just silently cry. I wish we could afford to send this particular presentation to every household in the district. I don't know if we can do it via email.
A paper version?
But
or
it
a
is
hard copy?
this is everything.
We can do that.
This has the history, this has the.
We can explore that.
If we can put it into at least email, and make sure it's on our website. This was a great comprehensive overview of historical and moving forward.
Thank you. I think the tricky part is having someone to explain it to folks.
Correct.
Because I had a couple of people, they saw the presentation and they emailed me. They were saying you're increasing the levy by 5.99.
I know.
You can't do that. PTEL is only 3.4. And I said, even if we wanted to, the clerk would never do that because the clerk follows the statute, which is that 3.4.
Well, we could do one of the, where you record yourself presenting it.
Well, I
A
think
webinar.
we just did.
Yeah.
So,
You just did.
yeah.
Yeah, and I do think, like, we I'm just going to be, speaking bluntly here and honest. We had someone who, and Mr. Mahanti, who did an excellent job probably close to a decade ago, right, a little under, explaining all of this, and it was fundamental. It was very important, and so I really just want to say it is crucial for whoever sits up here or whatever time. We have to have competent, diligent, and effective people running our finances at all times, and we have paid the price in the past for losing talented people like Mr. Mahanti, and we're very happy that you're here. You remember my reaction when I saw you, so it was genuine.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, 9.5. I think you already spoke to it, but I always call you Dr. Raphael. Mr. Obafemi.
You mean 9.
The truth in taxation, we need to have a hearing on the
On
on the
9.6, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
Okay.
another process in the levy.
All right.
Okay. All right, 9.7. Integration of Pest Management Services RFP.
All right, so this is another RFP that I worked in collaboration with Caitlin Earwood to develop. We sought out the requests from 3 vendors to help us keep an order in our house with the little pests and mice and things in the district that want to try to integrate our buildings. And out of those requests, ChemWise proved to be the best candidate for that, and we were recommending that we sign off with ChemWise for our pesticide.
Any questions?
And this is another way, what we're trying to do, we're trying to leverage our buying power. Because in the past, what we did, we bought retail on a lot of things. And we'll call
For
a
pest services
company.
even?
Yes, we'll call a pest company when we needed them. We didn't negotiate up front, where we got best pricing, where we then have them sign an agreement not to raise their prices for a year. So we're trying to use our economy of scale, our buying power, to try to get the best pricing for some of the important things that we spend money on.
That's great. Mr. Queen, anything else? All right.
What is 9.8?
Okay, 9.8. Any questions?
Oh, I see.
We left out the demonstration regarding any pests.
Wanted to see the earwigs.
Yes.
Okay, we're done.
Yep.
Okay. Moving on to 10.1 action.
Oh, Dr.
9.8.
Kincaid.
Oh. Okay,
So
go ahead.
in 9.8, in our last Policy and Legislative Committee meeting, we reviewed several policies for first read. Starting with Section 2 for the school board, we reviewed 270 exhibit for the checklist for filing board vacancies by appointment. We also reviewed 2105 ethics and gift ban. We specifically looked at prohibited political activity and prohibited sources. And we will be consulting board attorney for additional consult, but we're currently not recommending any changes. Also in Section 2, we reviewed 2120, board member development, and the changes there focus on required PD changes by Illinois School Code, primarily focus on trauma-informed. Throughout the remaining policies, you'll see most of the changes are in response to Illinois School Code or also Illinois Human Rights Act. In Section 4 for operational services, revenue investments, the updates are in response to Illinois School Code changes. Also for 460, the references are updates due to Illinois School Code. We are not recommending any change to our own policy language that we adopted last year. For 4150, the changes recommended by press is increasing the renovations or permanent alterations to buildings or grounds, increase from 17,500 to 35,000. The change would then trigger board approval necessary. In 4170, the changes to the safety policy focus on at least one AED being present during or at each district attendance center and at district-sponsored extracurricular activities. In terms of Section 5 for general personnel, both 510, 520, 590 all focus on changes based on the Illinois Human Rights Act and Illinois School Code and Title IX. In 5120, it's changes to the verbiage of school counselor, and then also includes bans of receiving travel, lodging, food, or beverage. In 5125, it does broaden from teacher to school personnel. I apologize. In 5125, it changes the social media apps and devices, but then in 5230, for maintaining student discipline, that is what broadens from teacher to school personnel and prohibits corporal punishment. For 660, so Section 6 is about instruction. Additions based on Illinois School Code are worker safety, personal health habits, career exploration and development, which you've heard Dr. Paul and her team speak to, as well as college and career pathway endorsements. And then new for fall of 2026 would be the inclusion of environmental education. 6135, possible changes include going from meets and exceeds for automatic placements to just exceeds. We're currently still talking about this. It also, the changes include notification both for qualification and for changes. We currently have followed the policy and the recommended changes. We have recently submitted and sent out our APP letters to our parents. In 6270, the changes are in relationship to school counselor services and professional development. And then finally in Section 7, changes to 710, similar to 510, in regards to Illinois Human Rights and Title IX. In 7100, it removes the requirement for notification in regards to meningococcal, I apologize for any mispronunciation, materials. And then 7180 is updates in response to Title IX. Any questions?
Second.
Can I just ask a question about 6135, the accelerated placement program?
Yes.
I love everything that's in it. I get this is just a policy and it's pretty generic, but what are the criteria beyond the state assessments?
So in terms of the early entrance to kindergarten or first grade, there is a variety. I know Dr. Paul can also supplement. They do interviews. They look at a variety, because there is no state assessment in kindergarten and first grade.
Yeah.
They monitor basically play. They do administer some small assessments. In terms of our rising 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, they are using state assessments. So they will consider other additional assessments as needed in terms of FastBridge, if additional courses are requested. But at our high school currently, we pretty much have an open enrollment to any honors class. So the communication that went out to parents was based on both meets and exceeds of either IAR or last year PSAT 8-9 or PSAT 10 or the SAT. And then the courses that represent the next level in math, science, English, or social studies that information was provided to parents and students.
I just think that when we continue to look from an equity lens and recognize those with ADHD, those with anxiety disorders, and with regards to testing, you are just to base it on testing alone just concerns me, because we know that there are a lot more data available that affects how kids perform. So I just wondered. Thank you.
We're talking about placement. We're talking about placement for
Advanced placement.
right.
Right.
I thought we had discussed this in the past, that there's more criteria than just the testing portion, right?
Correct. So this,
Depending on the grade level.
so this is notification in terms of above and beyond what work is done and recommended by the teachers. So for example, a teacher can recommend a student for an honors course that regardless of the test score, they could place into. As I mentioned, many of our honors and AP do not have prerequisites, so a student can choose to take the honors or AP course at the high school. The application of the advanced placement plan currently is just additional notification and qualification. So there are many ways to be able to take an honors or an AP course at the high school.
Okay,
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid.
thank you.
And policy team.
All right, action item 10.1, approval of bills for payment. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to authorize the payment of bills in the amount of $7,147,667.62 as presented.
Second.
Ms. Venmus?
Aye.
Dr. Mario?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.2, approval of transportation hazardous route study. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the hiring of Erickson Engineering Associates LTD to conduct a hazardous walking route assessment for Oswego Community Unit School District 308 for a cost not to exceed $66,000.
Second.
Ms. Venmus?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Dr. Mario?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.3, approval of radio and repeater RFP lease agreement. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve A Beep LLC as the vendor for our radio communication needs and the 3-year lease agreement with American Capital to fund the acquisition of the radio and repeater.
Second.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood? Ms. Venmus?
Oh, sorry, aye.
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Dr. Mario?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.4, approval of fiscal year 2025-2026 budget calendar. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution to designate the CFO to begin the fiscal year 2026 budget development process, prepare the budget in tentative form, and adopt the fiscal year 2026 budget calendar.
Second.
Dr. Maria?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Venmus?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.5, approval of resolution and request for Kendall County land cash. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the resolution to request the Kendall County land cash in the amount of $5,669.62.
Second.
Ms. Venmus?
Aye.
Dr. Mario?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.6, approval of intergovernmental agreement for sharing services. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement for the installation of a multi-use path from Ogden Falls subdivision to Oswego East High School.
Second.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Ploger.
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth.
Aye.
Dr. Maria.
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.7, approval of estimated tax levy and truth in taxation resolution. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the truth in taxation resolution as presented.
Second.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Dr. Maria,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Saron.
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye.
Mr. Ploger.
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.8, approval of board policies, second read. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve board policies, section 2, school board 2:260, 2:265, section 5, general personnel 5:100, section 7, students 7:20, 7:185.
Second.
Dr. Maria,
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth.
Aye.
Mr. Saron.
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Ploger.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.9, approval of resolution and fee agreement. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing diabetes medication overcharge litigation and the Friends Law Group lawsuit agreement.
Second. I wanted that one.
Ms. Venmuth.
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye.
Mr. Saron.
Aye.
Mr. Ploger.
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood.
Aye.
Dr. Maria.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson. Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.10, approval of destruction of audio recordings. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the destruction of the audio recordings of the closed session meetings from October 11th, 2022 through April 24th, 2023.
Second.
Mr. Ploger.
No.
Dr. Maria.
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye.
Mr. Saron.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
No.
Mr. Gatewood.
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
5-2.
5-2, sorry. Yes, that's what I meant. Action item 10.11, approval of the release of closed session minutes. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to make available no closed session minutes at this time due to a determination that they require continued confidentiality.
Second.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth.
Aye.
Mr. Saron.
Aye.
Dr. Maria.
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Ploger.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.12, approval of board agreements. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the board agreements as discussed on October 28, 2024, and change the name to board protocols.
Second.
Mr. Saron.
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Ploger.
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth.
Aye.
Dr. Maria.
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. 10.13, approval of personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the personnel report as discussed and presented.
Second.
Mr. Gatewood.
Aye.
Dr. Maria.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Ploger.
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye.
Mr. Saron.
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 10.14, approval of resolution for dismissal. Can I have a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing notice of dismissal to educational support staff employee Nicholas Chaucy.
Second.
Dr. Maria.
Aye.
Ms. Venmuth.
Aye.
Mr. Saron.
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood.
Aye.
Ms. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Ploger.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 11.1,